we should really examine our lives from a standpoint of like, do we wake up in the morning and feel good? This product, this 5-stage agonist GLP-1 peptide will change bodybuilding. It will change performance enhancement because it literally will be a drug that people can take though they lose fat and build muscle at the same time. What causes hair loss is blood flow restriction to the scalp. If you add Cardiolax to that GHKCU, BPC, and TB-500 blend, I will flat out tell you that that is the strongest healing stack known to man right now. The 4th density beings that are higher than us, which is going on right now. I mean, all you have to do is look at COVID. You can look at adrenochrome harvesting, sex trafficking, organ harvesting, all of that stuff. We're in a society today, again, this instant gratification society, where not enough people serve others. The truth is that the majority of chemicals that are manufactured into raw ingredients for pharmaceuticals and research does come from either India or China. I have so many friends that give their dogs BPC and TB-500. I know people that give their dogs, Deca and testosterone.
Yo, Jay Campbell, welcome to the show.
Mark Bell, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
I would like to start out by talking a little bit about like these bioregulators. I kind of find some of this, like, I guess maybe it's not even new, but like newer stuff to me. I find some of this stuff interesting. We know a little bit about peptides because we've had other guests on the show talk about peptides, but what are bioregulators?
So bioregulators are a very interesting form of peptide. They come out of Russia, really Bulgaria and Russia, and there's actually 60 years of research on them. Dr. Victor Cavinson, may he rest in peace or rest in power, as we say now, who died in December of 2023, is kind of the father of bioregulators. He owned all the patents in Russia and in the East. And since his death, they've come into North America and the West, and you see them everywhere now. Of course, my company, of course, promotes and sells them. But they're basically oral capsules. There's also injectable forms that are now just starting to come into the market. But if we look at like peptides versus bioregulators as like chains of amino acids or signaling molecules, the oral bioregulators are shorter chains, where the injectable versions are longer chains.
And they're not steroids. Are they illegal? Like, are they illegal like for the Olympics or NCAA or UFC?
So it depends on who you ask. They're technically by GRAS listed and marked as supplements. So for example, when we sell them from BioLongevity Labs, they're basically like selling supplements or Amazon, just like you sell. So there's no regulations against them. However, if you really look at the pharmacokinetics and molecular dynamics of them, they are similar to a drug in their mechanism of action. I love talking about bioregulators because not enough people, as you just said, know about them, but I see them as becoming a massive sweeping change in our space over the next 3 to 5 years. And for one reason only, they're orals, right? And as you know, the barrier of entry is injectables. 80% of the population is not going to inject themselves. Doesn't matter what you and I show them or what research comes out. It's just a phobia of injecting themselves. But the barrier of entry from swallowing a supplement is obviously much smaller. So most people will take them, but when you look at their mechanism of action, it's mostly for people to upregulate or improve or even enhance signaling as we age, right? So like a man, I use this as an example, a man can take a prostate bioregulator as they're in their 40s and 50s, and it will work on reducing the size of the prostate. Because as you know, and I'm sure you've had many people come on the show and talk about it, as a man gets older, it's statistically proven that if you live till 80, it's like a 90% chance you're going to have a mild form of prostate cancer, right? So the reality is that it's just a vestigial organ in our body that increases in size and swells as we get older. So if you could take a supplement, so to speak, a bioregulator, and by the way, the one that I'm talking about is called Libidon, that goes to work from a natural cascade and process of shrinking the prostate as you get older. I mean, what's better than that, right? Because no man, myself included, in their 50s and 60s wants to wake up 3 times a night to take a piss. When this product can actually reduce the size of it and make you, go to the bathroom to urinate maybe once, and perhaps maybe not even once, you can sleep the whole night.
Any type of drawbacks to these?
So far, no. And again, because they're organic signaling molecules, and they're also, which I should talk about, they're tissue specific. So it's kind of amazing. So if you look
almost a little bit like a SARM.
If you look at, but SARMs are, I don't want to compare SARMs to bioregulators because SARMs have down regulation issues and down, call it receptor level. There's a lot of things that happen from a cascade standpoint downstream that cause bad effects. We can talk about SARMs. We can go down that path if you want. But bioregulators, in that they're designed to be tissue specific, they don't break down in the human body like Rockefeller Petroleum District or big pharma medications do, which those leave a petroleum or an oil-based residue, which, as you know, cause harmful side effects in other systems. Whereas bioregulators, like if it's designed for the kidney, or if it's designed for the prostate, or it's designed for the woman's ovaries or the man's testes, it literally specifically from a mechanism of action standpoint targets that area and doesn't leave behind any harmful residue that could cause side effects downstream, which SARMs do, a lot of big pharma medications do.
How long have these been a thing? Because, SARMs started getting popular a few years back, right? And I don't want to, I just want people to be careful,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So how long have these been a thing? How much research is done into them? And as far as there's no risks necessarily, but we should always be careful with what we ingest,
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, if you want to go down the rabbit hole with SARMs, I'm like one of the biggest anti-SARMs people on the planet because they're horrible. They're worthless, actually. They cause so many negative side effects. I mean, I again, I have a lot of amazing doctors in my network, and those guys will tell you stories of young men and women, sadly, coming into their offices and practices with completely crashed, blood fats, hepatic function. I mean, you name it, like just horrible things. And that's the problem with those drugs. And, and I don't know why people have never understood this, but SARMs are all orphaned big pharmaceutical drugs that somebody picked up, an underground steroid bodybuilding dealer or, anybody else on the internet that wanted to sell these things. And of course, they do offer, anabolic cascade pathway derived effects positively, but the negative side effects that they cause that again are all downstream and later are so bad that you would never ever want to recommend a SARM to anybody over therapeutic testosterone because obviously the side effects completely outweigh the positives. But to your question, because it's a great question, there's over 60 years of research on bioregulators. And again, it comes from Russia, it comes from Bulgaria. We used to say 6 or 7 years ago, because I knew about these, one of my business partners and a great formulator, shout out to Nick Andrews. We knew about them back in 2016 and 2017, but you couldn't get them into the United States because Cavinson had put down very powerful patents to prevent them from coming out of the Eastern Bloc. So like you couldn't get them. If you wanted to use a bioregulator then, you'd have to go into the motherland of Russia or even into Bulgaria, Latvia, places like that in the Eastern Bloc that had these. But now that we have AI, right, you can translate all these studies. So it's very simple to go through a lot of this information that they have, that's garden variety, in the research/clinical space in Russia, and again, Bulgaria, Latvia, whatever, and see the information they have on people using these. And from what I understand, and again, I've never been to Russia, I want to go, it's a bucket place, but you can get these, from pretty much any pharmacy over the counter in Russia, and they're just garden variety like aspirin. So with understanding that, knowing, what I know about them, because I've been experimenting them personally and obviously with my clients and our, buyers and, even my inner circle for the last 2.5 years since they really started coming into the marketplace, I haven't heard of anything but good stuff. It's really difficult to overdose on them because the way they're recommended is like you take 2 a day for 10 days and then you take 10 days off. Or if you take a stack, you take maybe 1 of each, at a various point in time in a day. Same thing, 10 days if it's for maintenance and for just general health. And if it's acutely injured or acute, autoimmune disease or some form of disease, you might do it for 30 days in a row. But it's not something like an oral steroid or again, an oral SARM where people are going to take more to hopefully get better. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you just take a very it's called a surgically precise micro dose of 1 or 2 capsules and you do it over this amount of time and then you kind of assess what's happening. So again, like if we're looking at a male's prostate, do you notice better stream in your urine? Are you emptying faster? Is it less bladder, or incontinence or something like that? So you can see this. And it's the same thing with the eyes. I think you and I were talking about the eyes. And again, shout out to Chris Gethin because Chris and I are, very good friends. He said, by the way, tell Smelly Bell. I said, what's up, mate? Cool. But anyway, he said to me the other day that because we just did a retreat together in Tulum, he said that he used Sigomir and Cardiolax, which is the one I've been telling you about, which we can talk about on the show because I think it's a game changer for bioregulators. And he said he got a better effect in strengthening his shoulder than he was getting from BPC and TB-500 and copper peptide GHKCU, which he was using as a blend to inject. And so he's like, I'm really a big proponent of these. And unfortunately, not enough people know. But, that's, another example of like, if you use that for say 30 days and you get regeneration in your shoulder or more range of motion or something like that, I think you have a good idea, it's working.
And, people may have heard of the Wolverine stack, the BPC and the TB-500. What do those things do? And then what does the copper peptide do? And then if you take it a step further and talk about that other one.
Cardiolax.
Cardiolax.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So where we're going with this is you can now inject, well, first off, the original Wolverine stack, which I've been writing about literally on my website. I did a podcast with Ben Greenfield back in 2017, and we started talking about this to the world, and everybody like started using it. And, the powerlifting community started using it. The bodybuilding community started using it. And again, just for the record for the show, I literally have been using injectable peptides, research peptides since 2004. Okay, so I've been in this game for literally 2 decades. So, I've used everything, experimented with pretty much everything. My first peptide that I ever injected was ipamorelin. But to your question, BPC and TB-500 are the tried and true Wolverine stack. You get BPC, body protective compound 157, is literally increasing angiogenesis, increasing red blood cell formation. And TB-500, which is thymosin beta, is suppressing cytokines, increasing interleukin, and of course, suppressing inflammation altogether. So together, synergistically, they do a lot for healing. If you add copper peptide GHKCU, which I call the ShamWow peptides because it also increases angiogenesis, it improves red blood cells, it causes hair regrowth, it eliminates fine lines and wrinkles on the skin. It does a lot of things. If you add that into it, you get a deeper and more enhanced effect. And at my company right now, BioLongevity Labs, we're actually selling that product. We call it the Glow Protocol or the Glow, I forget what it's the Glow something.
I wonder if it's a little related to grounding in some way, like the copper wire, the grounding, the copper in your shoes that people are doing.
Well, copper's in our blood, right? So like, if it's interesting because there's a lot of people selling copper peptide GHKCU in the market that are selling ineffective products because it doesn't have the necessary grade. So for everybody listening to this podcast, to understand whether or not you're getting GHKCU at a level that will be effective, if it's not a 3% grade or better, it's worthless. And 90% of the companies that are out there selling GHKCU do not have 3% grade because it's expensive to manufacture.
Without like turning this into a commercial,
yep.
Your company seems amazing because you're picking up the best of the best.
Yes, exactly.
Along the way. Have Alex Kiekel is one of your formulators,
yes,
and you have some of the best chemists. And
100%.
Every time I talk to you, you're like, oh yeah, we picked that guy up. We hired this guy.
Yes,
So you guys are
yes.
diligently trying to provide the best of the best.
And I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I don't want to make a commercial. I want this to be as unbiased as possible, but I've had a goal in my life since I got into this space probably 30 years ago that I wanted to eventually create, I think the best way for people to understand it is the Amazon for biohackers, right? So whether you're a performance enhanced athlete, a bodybuilder, a strong man, or just a general everyday, Joe or Jane who wants to improve their life and live longer, stronger, like we're going to sell products that can help you do that. And yes, exactly. We only surround ourselves with the best. We only pick the best products. Everything that we create is literally manufactured and synthesized in the United States. Now people will hear that and they'll be like, oh, Jay Campbell's full of shit because everything comes out of China. The truth is the majority of chemicals that are manufactured into raw ingredients for pharmaceuticals and research does come from either India or China. Okay, majority China. Now, but as you guys know now with the Trump tariffs and all the stuff that's going on, that is minimizing. So what you're seeing now in the United States is smart companies of which we're affiliated with who are jumping into the fray to say, oh no, we're going to manufacture this here and everything will be controlled here and we will synthesize our raws too. So I can honestly tell you guys that we are working with 2 companies right now in the United States that are synthesizing the raws. So when we say that we manufacture in the USA, we're not bullshitting. Okay, there are definitely some products that still have to come out of China because nobody's making them in the United States yet, but they are being made here. And I think you guys know this. You know this from your company. When you can control and isolate, the sterility process, the certification, the GMP, all of that stuff, you're in a far better situation than buying something that comes out of China, which you have no control over. And, to be very truthful, the majority of people that sell peptides online today, and I have only love for all of those people because they're helping people, whether they come from China. The majority of those people are not making them in very sterile processes, right? They're making them wherever they make them, whether it's somebody's basement, somebody's kitchen, an underground garage, whatever. So you do have to be very cautious. As I say, buyer beware today of where you get your stuff. Always make sure that you're looking at certificates of authenticity, verified lab analysis, just make sure that people are doing independent testing. But to say that, there's also a lot of great companies in the space that do all that. So I think, and we can go wherever we want with this podcast, but I think a lot of people will ask at times, like, what's the difference between buying a compounded version of a peptide versus a research peptide? And truthfully, there's not much difference, provided that where you're getting your peptides are coming from verifiable sources. And I think that's what people, as a consumer, really have to be cautious of, because this. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for months now. Peptides are blowing up. And in the next 6 months to 12 months, as bioregulators come into the marketplace, it's even going to it's going to gamify that. So it's like, if you're a buyer / a consumer and you're in that space, make sure you know where you're getting your products from, because there will definitely be people that are selling, again, risky, less qualified, less controlled, less rigorous as far as from a testing standpoint. So just make sure that you know where you're getting your products from.
When it comes to Cardiolax, what's that able to provide for people?
Now that we just ended that rabbit hole, Cardiolax is an incredible bioregulator that people are just starting to find out about. Again, Chris Gatlin used it. He said it completely helped him regenerate his right shoulder beyond what BPC and TB-500 has normally done from him. And Chris is a good friend and been using peptides since probably like 2019, 2018. Everywhere he goes on podcasts around the world, which he does many, he says, Jay Campbell and Nick Andrews got me on BPC and TB-500 and it regenerated my tricep. I had detached my triceps and literally I was retached in 4 months. So he's like a giant peptide evangelist. And again, I love him. He's a good friend of mine, great person. But obviously now many bodybuilders, many performance enhancing athletes and people just in our space are using these things with great effect. Not enough people know about Cardiolax. And let me just say this, and again, this is a bro comment and obviously a personal opinion, but they call it Cardiolax for a reason, right? The holy grail in our space is like being able to regenerate cartilage, right? If you have compressed spine, if you guys have compressed spine from doing heavy squats or heavy deads or whatever, over time, that inner vertebral space and that, the intercranial disc space and the synovial fluid and the joint capsules, when you get bone on bone, you can't do shit, right? There's people out there saying, oh, you can take stem cells or, PRP or exosomes or all these different things, plasmapheresis. But if you don't have the space in the joint, you're pretty much not going to get a lot of benefit and a lot of healing effect. My opinion, based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, if you use Cardiolax, you might, and I'm not saying guaranteed, but you might get cartilage regeneration. If not cartilage regeneration, cartilage rebirthing, and actually, let's just call it stronger nerve fiber bundles at the cellular network signaling. So if you took Cardiolax, and again, by the way, right now, Cardiolax is an injectable bioregulator. Again, it's aqueous based, so it's water. It's just like the orals. There's no side effects because it's, again, designed to regenerate and helpfully strengthen cardio as a person ages. If you add Cardiolax to that GHKCU, BPC, and TB-500 blend, I will flat out tell you that is the strongest healing stack known to man right now. And unfortunately, not enough people know about this, but if everyone started adding Cardiolax to that stack, they would probably see regeneration and healing the likes that they've never seen before. And this is, by the way, for older people too, like 60s, 70s, long-term, hardcore trainees, strong men and stuff like that. Like they can probably see incredible change by doing that. Mm.
How does this compare? I mean, I don't know, even if you can compare it to something like stem cell treatment. That's something that a lot of people are getting done now. And when we talk about regeneration, a lot of people's minds go there, especially in like the grappling communities. A lot of guys get stem cell work, right? So with a stack like this, what do you see? What are your thoughts?
So I think you again, so stem cells are great. Exosomes are great. It just, again, it comes down to how much space do they have. Because a lot of people use them for bone-on-bone degradation, right? So, like, let's say you're somebody who's been a long-term heavy squatter, heavy deadlifter, and you've got no space, in the sacks in the lower back and say L4, L5, and people are telling you like you just have constant pain because you're bone-on-bone. Stem cells are not going to do jack. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people out there that will tell you they will because they want your money and they want you to come to Honduras or Panama or Costa Rica. But in truth, you won't see much benefit from that. Now, if you don't have that issue, stem cells are amazing. There's tons of MMA guys going to Mexico. They're going to Panama. I mean, of course, I know all these companies. I don't have to mention any of their names. And they all do a great job. But to your original question, if you really want to do this the right way, you would probably want to do, and again, you didn't have bone on bone, you would want to do a combination of stems and PRP and exosomes, and then also from a maintenance standpoint, do the BPC, TB-500, GHKC, and Cardiolax. In fact, I would tell you that all of us as guys in our 50s, and I know you're not that old yet, but as we age with the wear and tear from lifting and training and doing cardio and doing all the things that we do, just living, I think Cardiolax, BPC, TB-500, and GHK should be something that you do probably monthly. And when I say monthly, I mean like a very low maintenance dose, like a very surgically precise dose. So that, if you're injecting it, just for maintenance, you probably want to take it like once or twice a week. And if you get seriously injured, you're probably going to inject it, 3 or 4 days a week until your pain and stiffness goes away.
Quick question too.
Sure.
Do you, when analyzing some of this stuff, do you have guys get imaging done, or is it like you just pay attention to how these areas feel and you should be feeling better over time?
I think both. I think it's a great question. I mean, you want to always track and understand what's happening to you. And, if you can use an MRI, there's all these now digital technologies are coming into the marketplace. I think it's great. But at the end of the day, knowing your body and how you feel, like we say in the therapeutic hormone world, we say the twofold goal of therapeutic hormones is happiness and balance. And I've changed it to say joy, because happiness is a transient state, right? Where joy is a chosen state of being. So that's kind of how you want to be. Are you joyful? Do you feel balanced? Like that to me, when I say, if you're joyful and balanced, obviously you're free of aches and pains, right? So that's kind of the way to kind of look at it. But I think that, it's probably, if you've severely injured yourself or you have severe wear and tear, I think it's always a good idea to look at it at least once a year to see what's happening. Most people that I know, and I'm sure you guys have heard these stories too, who go to general orthopedic surgeons and people that are, involved in rehabilitation when they have a serious injury, they always freak out when they see a person who's used GHK, BPC, and TB-500. In fact, one of my good friends in Tampa, and you might know him, his name is Matt Chrisman. He's a very big PEMF guy. He does a lot of bodybuilders and stuff like that, but he comes and works on me and Monica once a week. I love Matt. Shout out to Matt. He tore his distal quadricep saving his dog from a water moccasin attack. I think I told you about this guy, right?
Did,
yeah. And so he's a big dude. He's a bodybuilder, and he tore it in half. And it happened at the end of February, and he literally has been using, our stacks and all the peptides and the Cardiolax and the peptides that we've been talking about. And I mean, dude, his radiologist and his orthopedic surgeon literally just saw him for a 2-month checkup, and they said they've never seen anything like this. You'll be seeing him because he's recording the whole thing and tracking everything and, doing vlogs and stuff like that. And he's going to post all this when he gets back to full recovery. But peptides, bioregulators, obviously the other stuff you're talking about, if you do that kind of stuff, you're talking about 20 years in front of allopathic medicine, especially in the way orthopedic surgery is now. In fact, we could talk about this. I think if you're an orthopedic surgeon, and you replace people's knees and you replace people's elbows and you replace people's ankles and hips and all these things, you're now at a serious moral quandary in your life, because is it better for you to order this $100,000, $120,000, $90,000, insurance subrogated surgery, which obviously you make a lot of money, the hospital makes money, the insurance makes money, versus ordering a $1,500 regimen of BPC, TB-500, GHKCU, and Cardiolax? You know what I mean? And I think you probably know her. Maybe you've had her on our show, Dr. Elizabeth Yerth from Biohacking.
Sure.
I'll introduce you to her. She'd be great. You want to bring her on the show. She'd be awesome to come on the show. But she's an amazing orthopedic surgeon, well-renowned. She's in Colorado. And she's also a big peptide person. And she, I was just on a panel with her at the Olympia last year, and we talked about this. And she's like, it's very difficult for me to say to a 50-year-old man or woman, and again, like me and you, in good shape, condition, single-digit body fat, to have an ACL replacement when you can do this, because she can theoretically prove that like you're going to probably get the same level of tissue regeneration and repair from the peptides than you would from me replacing, your joint with a cadaver, graft or something like that, or your own. So it gets really weird nowadays, whereas obviously you guys know 10 to 15, 20 years ago, it was always surgery, replace it, put it now. But now we have these technologies that are so badass and so productive that you really do have to kind of wait what's a better move, right? Like clearly someone who's in their early 20s or late teens and is a aspiring athlete and destroys it, like a lot of women tear their ACL, it's going to be better to have the surgery and then to heal with the things that we're talking about. But somebody our age nowadays, it might not be, because the surgeries are very difficult to recover from. And again, you're talking about repairing and replacing a tendon with a graft on a person who's in their 50s. And we don't have the tensile strength and the muscles that we had in our early, 20s and late teens. So it is, I think, becoming a moral quandary. And I would say within 10 years, I would say that hopefully, that orthopeds are so skilled and so good at this now that they can pretty much tell the difference of whether or not they need to actually do a full replacement or just use peptides and bioregulators.
What about regenerating? Because you can regenerate all kinds of stuff. But what about hair?
Oh, man.
Seems like there's been a lot of progress.
You want to go down that rabbit hole with me. So I love talking about hair. So my original company that I sold in 2022, which was called Aseir Custom, ASEIR, and people ask, what the hell does Aseir mean? And it's literally the Viking gods. That's what the Aseir were, right? And that came from my ex-business partner, Nick Andrews' ideas, because he's a big ginger guy and he's all into the Vikings and the Scandinavians and stuff. But we had a patented hair regrowth product. And that's the reason we were able to sell our company for as much as we did when we did. And we were one of the first companies, I think, maybe the only company that got a patent on a peptide-based hair regrowth product. And guess what was in that? Copper peptide GHKCU, right? And then we also had carbon-60. We had some other stuff in it that allowed us to patent it and sell it. But here's the truth. We've now come a long way. That product was built in 2019. And again, going back to GHKCU, it has to have a 3% blend of copper peptide or better, or it's really pretty much ineffective. You can now do 10%. Yeah, we sold it. It still exists, but don't even get into that company at this point. There's now people out there, including us, and that building 10% grades of copper peptide GHKCU. So if you take a 10% grade and then you add all these new bioregulators, growth factors, and new hair regrowth peptides, which we don't have to get into names of them, but they're all now coming into the marketplace. I'm not joking when I say this. You could probably regrow hair on a cue ball. So when we built that product, which was again called Oxano Grow, there were 3 different variations of it. We always tested, and you and I were talking about this morning on our walk. It's always going to be based on, does a person, male or woman, have active follicles in the scalp, or are they chromed down? And if you had active follicles, our product would regrow the hair, okay? If you didn't have active follicles, then you'd probably be up against it. It'd be a lot harder. But this product that we're making at BioLongevity Labs that Alex and I are, essentially co-created, and Alex, again, being the master formulator, his ideas, I added like 3 different things to it. I promise you guys, to the world, to everyone listening to this, it will literally regrow hair on a bald head. Because there's going to be so many growth factors, so many peptides, so many amazing things that will stimulate angiogenesis, stimulate follicular regrowth and nerve regeneration, that your hair will regrow. So we're very close. And when I say very close, I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, hair transplants will be a thing of the past. People will not have to go to Turkey and spend $3,000 to $5,000 to get hair regrowth.
That would be amazing. Yeah,
it's coming. I mean, we're there. I mean, in theory, there's nothing in the actual marketplace right now that's out there for people to do this. Now, people are going to hear me say this, and they're going to say, Jay Campbell's full of shit. His other product, he was full of shit. It never worked. And we always tell people this, and this is the truth about hair regrowth and hair loss itself. Most people do not understand why hair loss happens. And hair loss happens, well, let me ask you guys, why does hair loss happen? Let me see if you guys know the answer to this.
I think it's probably pretty genetic.
That's a factor. What else?
High testosterone, DHT.
So that's what most people think. And that's what actually allopathic medicine thinks too. But that's actually fundamentally not true.
All right, we've been trying to build up our feet for a long time, trying to make some changes to our feet. And Seema, what are some differences you've seen with wearing some Vivo barefoot?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I was a soccer player my whole life and I thought I had strong feet until I, started actually doing foot exercises and strengthening the feet and wearing barefoot shoes. And first thing I want to mention is when you guys start wearing barefoot shoes, have other options because these shoes are flat, which allows your foot to really work on the ground. They're flexible, so your toes are going to be curling more when you take each step, right? And they're wide, so your foot's going to be getting more action than ever. So it's a good idea to, have your barefoot shoe, but then have something else that allows your foot a little bit of a break. But man, for me, in jiu-jitsu, my feet now work like hands. So now when I'm playing my guard, my feet are grabbing the opponent.
That's a little scary.
It is. And people feel weird when my toes grab onto them, but it's because every single day I walk around in barefoot shoes, and they're getting stronger as I just take my 10-minute, 20-minute walks.
I think it's amazing. You know, I've known a lot of things about fitness for a really long time, but I did not know what a weak point my feet were. And my feet used to hurt all the time. I had a callus thing on the side of it that was always just bugging me. I tried to get wider and wider shoes.
Plantar fasciitis.
I went all the way up to getting like a 13 and a half shoe, which I don't need a 13 and a half shoe. I got no business wearing that size, but I was trying to make up for, I needed like more width, but most of the shoes don't have it. And people like Chuck Taylors, they like Vans, they like Nikes, but almost all those shoes are fairly narrow and they're kind of hurting people's feet. And so you want better feet, get yourself a pair of Vivos.
What causes hair loss is blood flow restriction to the scalp. So as we get older, we get less blood flow to the scalp. How does that happen? There's millions of reasons, right? We don't have to go into them. I mean, you can get heavy metal poisoning, mold toxicity. There's so many other things, sun exposure, being out without wearing a hat. Obviously, there's androgenic alopecia, which is what you said, genetic, which some men have. I mean, there's a lot of factors that increase thinning and increase balding and hair deposition as we get older. But loss as we get older. But the truth is it's all due to the blood flow restriction to the scalp. So if we could stop blood loss and increase blood flow to the scalp, we would never, even if we had a genetic predisposition, we would never actually lose all of our hair. So if you now understand that and you start doing things to increase blood flow, obviously through peptides, through PRP, through injections, stem cell injections, through all these different things, exosomes, along with all of these new growth factors and bioregulators, and again, exogenous, or call them exotic peptides that most people don't know about, you can completely regenerate hair. And that's where we're at.
So, I mean, is there any, again, when I hear some of these things, it's awesome, but then I also, again, wonder drawbacks. Are there any drawbacks to driving excess blood to the scalp, an area where like your brain, your eyes, et cetera, are there? Is there anything that you just need to keep in mind?
No, because, I mean, it's a good question, but no, because you're not driving anything to that in excess. You're driving what isn't there to be there. Okay. So again, and let's go down the whole DHT therapy of hair loss. So most doctors, most people in the hair loss space think that because what happens is in the scalp as we get older, DHT can diminutize the follicles in the scalp, and the follicles can get smaller and eventually fall out. And that's why drugs like finasteride, which by the way is a horrible, toxic drug. Post-finasteride syndrome has killed two of my good friends. That's a rabbit hole. I don't want to get going on that. I could do a whole podcast on that. But those drugs, those DHT inhibiting drugs, are literally cell toxins. They take years off of people's lives. They're horrible. If you're using finasteride or dutasteride, even topically, you should stop using it because it's really, really bad. And people will come at us and say, yeah, but Jay, it stops my hair loss, and I don't want my hair to fall out. But here's the problem. The way that stuff works, it does target the receptors, the follicular receptors. When you stop taking it, guess what happens? It stops targeting the receptors, and all of the diminutized follicles that it was attached to now fall out. So if you've ever talked to anybody that took that and stopped taking it, they all complain about the hair loss that happens right after it. And so, and by the way, which is crazy, and I did not know this, and I should have known this, they prescribe these things to women as much as they do men. So there are I'm not joking when I say this, there are millions of women out there taking DHT inhibitors, right? So this is so toxic to their hormones, to their sexual function, to their brainwave functioning. This stuff does horrible things to the brain. That's what post-finasteride syndrome is, right? Like one guy can do 1 week of finasteride and literally have a predisposition to that screwing up his brain and becomes permanently depressed. Not only does he become permanently depressed, he also becomes sexually dysfunctional. I've helped so many people. Alex has helped a lot of people with PFS too. Guys have to have penis implants because their dick won't work. That's how bad these drugs are, right? So to your question, your original question, it's a good question because you've heard of these downstream, signaling effects that those drugs do cause.
Yeah.
And when you're taking, again, natural agents like peptides or bioregulators or stem cells or any of these things, exosomes, like the reality is that in the scalp where somebody who's bald or is suffering from premature graying or premature thinning, all you're doing is getting them back to a healthy cellular level when they were supposed to be, like, say, in their 16 to 20 years of age when they had like the top natural production of blood, lymph, and all the other stuff that goes to the scalp. So that's what these
Sign
things
me
are
up,
doing.
dog. Shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not joking. Like, you will probably be one of the people that will want to get this when it comes out. Now, here's the thing, and I just told you this earlier today. This is going to be a very expensive product because the average person will not be able to afford this. Now, eventually they will, but initially, like, and I'm kind of letting the monkey out of the bag, but we've priced this product out, and we will have the #1 hair regrowth product in the history of mankind for a short time until somebody beats us. I would say soon, and that product is literally going to cost $1,000. Now, it'll last, anywhere from 60 to 90 days, depending on your level of thinning or if you're completely bald. But the truth is like when you compare it to a hair transplant, it's cheap, right?
$1,000, 60, 90 days.
I mean, it's not that bad, right?
that bad.
No,
Yeah,
but I mean,
especially if it works.
most people complain, right? I mean, because what they do is they compare it to like a cost of DHT inhibitor, like finasteride or whatever, minoxidil. They get minoxidil at the grocery store, and they can get that for $60, and that's 90 days, right? So they compare that to that, and they're like, oh, these guys are ripping us off. This is BS. But the truth is like at $1,000, we don't even have a 5x profit margin. That's how much it costs to make this product because. Just call it's a kitchen sink hair regrowth product. And it'll be, like I said, I know somebody will beat us because something better will come. That's just the way the world is. But this will be, when it first comes out, it will be best in class because it has everything that you could put in it and everything is synergistic.
What's up with this kitchen sink, fat burning, muscle gain product that you're coming up with too?
Man. So basically the holy grail right now in the performance enhancement / GLP-1 using world is a 4 or 5 stage agonist, right? Because right now we have a 3-stage agonist that most people know about in the research community, which is called retatrutide, which is an Eli Lilly pharmaceutical. It's still not FDA approved. It's technically supposed to be FDA approved at some point in 2026 and perhaps now not even to early 2027. But our communities know about it because people like us have been using it since late 2023 when it came out. I truthfully was maybe one of the first people to talk about using it because I started taking it in July of 2023. And very truthfully, we had no idea what the dosing parameters were back then because in the studies, and by the way, there's lots of studies on this drug and it's a very, very safe drug. But like most of the GLPs, we can talk about GLPs. I think it's worth talking about GLPs because most people don't understand what's going on because there's so much nonsense in the marketplace. But this drug was seen in like obese, diabetic men and women. Dumpster fires, right? The unhealthiest, sickest, most inflamed, subset of the population. And they were taking like 6 milligrams in the studies once a week, right? And again, once a week dosing for GLPs is the complete wrong way to do it. We can talk about that and drill down, and I think we should because I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing this. But the reality of it is that 6 milligrams, so like when it was told to me, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to be Jay Campbell and do half of that and see what happens. So I took it, and again, I was doing it once a week because that's what we were all doing before we started microdosing these things. And it literally, guys, it made me voracious. I mean, I was like eating everything in the house and not gaining a pound. I mean, it's again, a 3-stage agonist is increasing all the things metabolically that improve fat burning, resting energy, resting metabolism, de novo thermogenesis, increasing brown fat tissue formation. I mean, it's doing all these things to speed up your metabolism. So like when you're taking a high dosage and you're already a muscular lean person, it's like, you're like the Hulk. I mean, it's just you're metabolically amplified. So it was crazy because like I was telling people like, oh, this drug is not going to work. Like you can't give this to fat people who are metabolically dysregulated because they're going to want to eat all the time. Even though it will speed up their metabolism, these people still need appetite suppression, right? Because they've got all sorts of dysbiosis and all these negative things going on. But what I didn't know at that point was that you just needed to microdose it. So in our population, again, call us healthy, biohacking, bodybuilding bros, powerlifters, whatever, you just take a very, very tiny microdose either daily or every other day. Most people are not going to follow taking a microdose of a peptide every day. So it's like every other day, right? So you do it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I've gotten into the routine. I know a lot of people have gotten into a routine that like if they're fasters, they take it on their eating day because they know it's going to, stimulate their metabolism. Versus not, if you want to take like a appetite suppressing GLP, which I don't want to rabbit hole, but if you were taking like tirzepatide or something like that has strong appetite suppression, you would take that on your fasting day to help you through your fast, right? Extends your fast. And truthfully, that's why GLP-1 peptides have become so powerful in the biohacking community because they enhance fasting. They also enhance all the cellular processes that improve autophagy, increase hormesis, getting rid of senescent cells. It's like a cellular detox when you do these. Now, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of, let me just first finish what we were talking about. This product, this 5-stage agonist GLP-1 peptide will change bodybuilding. It will change performance enhancement because it literally will be a drug for the first time ever that people can take, though they lose fat and build muscle at the same time. Now, we all know, depending on your genetics, depending on how young you are, depending on what drugs you're taking, it's possible as a newbie to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. But for us, right, older guys, more advanced in our physiques, it's pretty hard to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, right? It's either or, right? You're in a deficit, you're losing, you're in a surplus, you're gaining. This drug, I'm not joking, will literally allow that to happen. So somebody like Mark right now, dude, what do you weigh? 200 pounds, 195? What are you right now?
215. 215.
Muscular, single-digit body fat, you would probably, because Alex and I have been talking about this, you will probably be able to put on, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, you will be able to put on somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds of solid skeletal muscle in 4 to 6 weeks, eating whatever the fuck you want.
Shit, that'd be wild.
I mean, it's coming, right? Now, that's not what we want to do from a standpoint, because we obviously still want to live healthy and we want to eat clean and we want to live insulin controlled and all that. But that's where this is going. And as you know, bodybuilders are not us, but bros don't care about health. They care about getting bigger, standing on stage and being the biggest mutant. So you can see where this is going to go. But like in our space, and I call our space the biohacking longevity space, this is going to change and revolutionize the world, because people will be able to, relatively eat clean and still put on 2 or 3 pounds of skeletal muscle, I would say quarterly, maybe not quarterly, maybe biannually, every year for the rest of their life. So you could just keep getting bigger and keep getting leaner. Now, I would say you won't be able to go leaner if you're at 6 or 7% body fat walking around, or 7 or 8% body fat walking around, but you can probably keep putting on muscle. That's how insane this drug is. Now, because I know you're going to ask me, but what are the potential harmful side effects and what could go wrong? We don't know. It's literally brand new, right? Like retatrutide has been studied for 4 years. I've been personally using it for 2 years. And again, I'm happy for anybody who wants to come to me. My biomarkers, which I routinely get labs twice a year, and I do very, very deep dive analysis under the hoods. I spend $2,000 twice a year to look at my labs. Everything has improved since I started using retatrutide. My small particle sizes, my APOB, APOA, APOB, my liver function, my triglycerides, all my inflammatory markers, everything has come down. I mean, I have the biomarkers now of like a 22-year-old Olympian. I mean, everything is insane. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've seen happen, I didn't expect to happen. And now that's what we're seeing in the studies, is that these drugs are so profound and so life-altering that if you live a clean lifestyle, which again is the stuff that we talk about, the people you bring on the podcast, the guys you could talk to and interview, living insulin controlled, eating enough protein, lifting weights, doing cardiovascular exercise, getting 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep a night, avoiding EMF mitigation. If you do all those things and you take these drugs in a microdose, you're going to revolutionize your health. They only improve health. They don't cause side effects. Now, here's the problem. 90% of people who use them don't know how to use them. 95% of the doctors who prescribe them don't know how to tell their patients how to use them. So that's why we have this giant morass in the marketplace and all these negative stories and symptoms and side effects that people are having. Gallbladder issues, thyroid issues, my hair fall out, hormone issues. I've got, not hepatic, but, gastric motility issues. All these people are doing it wrong. And when you're doing it wrong, you're only, like everything else, you're only going to have side effects that, result from that. And so the problem is that we have in the marketplace is more of an educational issue than the actual drugs. And it pisses me off. And I don't want to mention names because I don't want to, take anybody down, even though I could. There's some big names that are, quote unquote celebrity people who talk bad about these drugs. And it's like, they're just glomming on to the symptoms and the side effects they see in the mainstream. And it's not, you can't blame the patient, because again, a lot of these people, right, they're fat, they're metabolically inflamed, and call them, my term is dumpster fires. They want to get healthy, they want to lose weight, they want to do whatever they can, and they start taking these drugs. And as you know, the appetite suppression is so powerful, they stop eating. and the weight falls off and they're like, this is amazing. My dress is getting smaller. My pant waist is getting smaller, but they're not doing anything right. They're not eating enough protein. They're not lifting weights. They're not doing cardio, right? So eventually metabolic hell is unleashed, right? 4 weeks, 6 weeks, they got thyroid damage. They've got rebound weight gain. They've got all this horrible stuff that they talk about that you see. And it pisses me off when I see doctors who should know better and do know better glomming onto this and saying, see, we told you, these drugs are horrible. They're going to kill you. You've got, I don't want to say his name, but there's a doc out there talking about how it's snake venom. And it's like the reptilians are behind this. You know what I mean? So it's like there's so much utter nonsense about GLP-1s in the marketplace. It drives me crazy. If you're a scientist and you look at the data.
It was discovered from a lizard though, right?
Of course. Do you know how many drugs though are produced from lizards? Yeah. And from birds,
it doesn't mean it's
mammals.
Bad. It
Exactly.
Mean it's bad, yeah.
I mean, the reality is that everything that's natural is designed in an ecosystem created by Source, God, universe, whatever your spiritual belief is, to be in harmony with one another, right? So, like, we all share the same atoms, the same light, the same DNA. We're all connected. Everything is connected. But at the end of the day, like when I see all these people talking so bad about these GLP-1s, if you look at the data and you're a researcher, and a lot of people obviously say, Jay, just show me the science. I trust the science. And the science to me is also, that's another rabbit hole. But if you look at the data is incredible at what these drugs do.
How do you take them right? How do you take them how does someone take them the correct way?
Well, let's talk about, but let me just finish on the data. The data shows rewiring of negative brain pathways, alcoholism and elimination, video game and porn addiction, elimination. Like it teaches people, again, through the rewiring of brain pathways to stop making poor choices, to stop obsessing and compulsing over stuff that is meaningless and inconsequential. And I see this with so many people that I know who have been using these, right? So again, I've seen these when they're done right, and I'm gonna get to that in a second, life-changing. How are they done right? I just saw Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, shout out to her. Has she been on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just saw a big thing. She's a good friend. I just saw a big thing of her on Facebook talking about this. And again, she's one of the smart ones and she talks about and does the right stuff. She's like telling people that you will lose muscle if you don't do this right, right? So here's how we do this right, Mark. We do this right by, first off, starting with a microdose. So if you go to your garden variety physician and they prescribe a GLP-1, if they tell you to start with a high dose, you're doing it wrong already. A microdose is where you start because again, just like Dan Duchesne, start low, go slow, assess your unique individual genetic tolerance, right? That's how we understand. Once we start with a microdose, now we also have to understand that you cannot take these drugs without also understanding whether or not you're hormonally optimized or balanced. So if you're suffering from a hormone deficiency, which is like 80% of the public at this point, and you start down the path of a GLP-1, you're going to lose muscle. And you're going to lose muscle because that's how effective these drugs are at driving metabolic markers and improving metabolic machinery. So number one, microdose. Number two, find out if you have a hormonal deficiency and get optimized. And that doesn't mean you got to go jump on therapeutic testosterone or anything at all. We can talk about that, but obviously that's what we recommend. And that's what most men and women in their 40s and 50s should consider. But that's number two. Number three, live insulin controlled. Okay. This is probably number one. But living insulin controlled means I now have to regulate my carbohydrate consumption. I'm increasing if I'm using retatrutide, which is a 3-stage, or tirzepatide, which are the two most, most prescribed and most used and well-known. I know that my metabolism is increasing, and I also know that my appetite is being suppressed. So I don't want to eat food that could cause spikes in insulin, right? So I'm living insulin control. What does that mean, Jay? People are going to be like, Jay, you're talking science. I don't even know what that means. It means you regulate your carbohydrate consumption. You already know this. You've had many experts on the show talk about this, right? The Charles Poliquin model, you get your carbs when you deserve them. You eat them post-training, peri-training, pre-training, when you know your body is going to be requiring muscle glycogen to fuel its performance. That's number three. Number four and number five are equal. I'm sorry, 5 and 6 are equal. Number four, you got to eat enough protein. And this is where most people, especially women, fail because, as you know, most women are protein malnourished. They're afraid that if they eat too much protein, they're going to get big, bulky muscles, or they're going to get fat, or all this nonsense. But the best way to say it, I'll shout out to Chris Cavallini, the owner of Nutrition Solutions. He says, eat the amount of grams that your goal body weight is. So a metabolically deranged person who's obese, who's 350 pounds as a man or 275 pounds as a woman, you're not going to eat 250 or 275 grams of protein or 350 grams of protein. That's too much. You're going to eat what your goal body weight is. The real answer scientific is your muscle mass, right? But very few people can calculate that. So that's number 4. 5 and 6 are you gotta lift weights. You gotta do resistance training. You don't have to lift weights. You could do hot Pilates or bone bearing, resistance training or bone bearing structural stuff, isometrics. But most people, it's resistance training in the weights, in the gym, or even at your house. And then equally with that, you gotta do cardiovascular exercise. Sleep, EMF mitigation, those are secondary and tertiary factors later. But if you do those 6 things when you're doing a GLP-1, you're not gonna have side effects. And you're gonna see dramatic body composition change for the better.
So I'm curious about this. You mentioned taking them one time a week is a mistake.
Yes.
Right? So as far as frequency, why is that a mistake?
Because they're designed, the half-lives of the drug are not designed, they have long half-lives, but like anything else that you take, just like if we think about like testosterone, when someone injects testosterone, taking it one time a week is anathema or ignoring the half-life of the testosterone ester, right? Because depending on what you're taking, whether it's ananthate, cypionate, a combination of the two, propionate, a short-acting, all of them break down in the bloodstream and in the system at different levels and speeds, right? But what we have to understand is that testosterone is testosterone, and once it's broken down and cleaved through the aromatase enzyme into estradiol, everybody has the same effect, right? So whether it happens in propionate's version of 12 to 14 hours versus cypionate's of 26 to 32 hours, testosterone is testosterone in the bloodstream and broken down, just like a GLP. A GLP, regardless of its half-life, is synthesized to last a certain amount of time, but there's a peak and a trial of every drug, right? So if we understand that we want to avoid trials and we want to maintain peak, we want to microdose. And a microdose is literally like daily, if you're super anal retentive, which few people can do that. There's a lot of men that probably listen to this show that probably take a microdose of testosterone every single morning like they brush their teeth, right? And they like doing that. They inject with a hypodermic insulin needle, maybe down here, maybe in their arms or whatever. The testosterone solutions nowadays, thank God, a lot of them are an MCT oil or sesame or, oils that are very thin, grapeseed too. And they can go through very small gauge needles. And so there's no scar tissue and you can just inject yourself. It's simple. But at the end of the day, if you microdose a GLP-1 peptide, you're going to keep the half-life like this versus one time a week, which is what most people do. And a big dose, remember, you're like this. Boom. So when you do that over time, you get a pronounced effect of, let's say, the first 2 days of no appetite. So what ends up happening when they have that giant bolus? They don't eat. Their appetite is so heavily suppressed that these people forget to eat.
And they might binge off of that, right?
Yes, exactly. So now when they crash 3 days later and they don't have that nadir like this, they're going to be more inclined to eat junk food or just to go back to their bad lifestyle habits, which is, again, the majority of people using GLPs are not us guys. They're people that are overweight. They're again, metabolically deranged. So they're looking to lose weight and do it the quickest, fastest, easy button way. And so they're not, engaging in the lifestyle habits that I just talked about doing it right. So that's what you got to really look at. But in my opinion, and again, I've worked with thousands of people now and probably hundreds of thousands, if not maybe millions with the people that have read my work and research, the feedback that I get from people who you injected at least 3 times a week is at least 100x from a positive standpoint than the people that are doing it once a week. And so again, if you're working with a doctor who's recommending you do it once a week, A, you break up the dosage if the doctor is a good doctor that you trust, or B, you fire that doctor and get a doctor who does know how to do this. And listen, majority of doctors out there that are doing this are microdosing it now. That are doing it right. They are microdosing this now. I mean, even Lilly came out with Zepbound, which is a microdose version of it. So it's not like they're not aware of how this is happening. I mean, and again, I don't want to tear down the medical establishment, but as I say, and Dan Duchesne used to say and taught me, if you start low and go slow, pharma is start high, go higher. Because that's how they make money. That's how they saturate receptors. That's how they get people to get more and more and more. And again, the average GLP-1 starts too high and literally 6 weeks later is taking a dosage that is out of this world insane. That now they've completely saturated the receptors. It doesn't even work. Versus, because you asked this question, it's a good question. If you microdose, you can take it forever. Because let me explain how that works. If you take a microdose, and let's just define what is a microdose. Let's just use tirzepatide. The average starting dose, again, medical, is 2.5 milligrams a week. I would tell a person to start with 0.25 to 0.5 every other day. So that's 1/5 to 1/7 of a weekly standard dosage. If you do it that way, you're going to get the same effects, if not better. Again, you're going to stay like this. You're going to have constant appetite suppression and metabolic enhancement. Over time, the receptors do not become desensitized because you stayed at such a low dose. And so if you have food noise, which a lot of people do, you can just drop off completely and take one shot a month of say 0.3 to 0.5, and you'll eliminate the food noise, but also allow the receptors to reacclimate and resensitize so that your body is never getting addicted to it. Again, there's no such thing, at least in the science and the literature, showing that people develop an addiction to it. They do develop a receptor desensitization to the super high dosages. And that's why all these people that take them and have all these horrible side effect stories quit and have the rebound, the metabolic rewound and the metabolic haywire issues, because again, they've oversaturated the receptors. They never did any of the 7 things or the 6 things that we decided has to be done to do it right. And their doctor never led them down the right path. Too high, more money. A lot of people quit too because they're being charged insane amounts at the dosages they have them at. And that's something we haven't talked about. Do you realize a pharmaceutical compounded version of the GLP versus a research version, whether you get it from me, Peptide Sciences, whomever, it's 1/10 to 1/15 the cost. So imagine being that person going to your doctor, wanting desperately to lose weight, wanting to quote unquote do it the right way, and after a month, you run out of money to even do it. Because that's what happens. A lot of these people are like, dude, this is $5,000 a month. I can't afford this. This is $3,500 a month. Even with my insurance, I can't afford this. So the market's completely out of hand. And thankfully, a lot of people, myself included, Dr. Gabrielle Land, Dr. Tina, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about doing this right. And they've told them that like, hey man, you got to do this in the way that is beneficial to you. And if you can't afford a pharmaceutical version, there's research versions out there. Just make sure you know what you're doing before you go down that path.
Can you tell us about Testogen? You were mentioning that. We were on the walk this morning and that sounded like it was interesting.
So Testogen is another injectable bioregulator that we're looking to actually have formulated an oral version. Right now, it's just injectable, just like Cardiolax, but we've been told it can be made into an oral version. Now, let's talk about oral versus injectable. I think you guys know, the people that listen to the show know that injection is always the highest impact delivery system because it crosses the blood-brain barrier the fastest. It also gets into portal circulation the fastest. It's always going to be the tried and true number one delivery system. However, because bioregulators are tissue specific in oral and they have no side effects when they break down in the system, you can get pretty good what are called pharmacokinetics or pharmacodynamics of these peptides / bioregulators. And again, they're the same thing technically from an oral version because again, they don't break down and cause all these downstream side effects. So you're looking at like a Testogen, whether you inject it or whether you use it as an oral, is perhaps one of the strongest, call it testosterone boosting, endocrine boosting products in the marketplace that won't disturb the body's hypogonadal function, right? So again, the holy grail in testosterone optimization today is to tell a man that you could take a substance that'll allow them to gain muscle, improve their endocrine function, but not disturb their body's natural production of testosterone. That's the game changer. I think, and again, I don't have any science to prove this. I just have people using it. I have younger people. I have older people. The people that I have counseled and worked with who have been using Testogen have raved about this product. They have said to me, dude, this is the closest thing to using therapeutic testosterone or a steroid cycle that I've ever seen. And again, in the research in Russia, in Bulgaria, using this drug does not disturb hypogonadal function. So it's not going to disturb your body's ability to be fertile, which again is the game changer, the holy grail in testosterone optimization or hormonal optimization, because that's always what guys want. They want something they can take to give them a little bit of gains. They want their gains, but at the same time, not disturb their body's fertility or not disturb their body's natural endocrine function. So I personally think that drug / bioregulator, as we get further along here in the next 2 to 3 to 4, 6 months, and even maybe next year and 2 years, you're going to see this is the product for TRT. And again, not for you and me, not for guys that have already chosen the testosterone path. And look, anyone listening to this, it's not going to replace TRT. I mean, let's be real, right? Testosterone is testosterone. But at the end of the day, if you can get a product that say can give you 35 to 50% of what TRT gives you and not disturb your body's natural testosterone function or endocrine function, I think a lot of guys will take that path. As I told you, I personally think this will be the path of younger men, because now they don't have to risk disturbing their body's natural function. They don't have to risk going on testosterone for life. And again, to me, that's a joke, because once you start on testosterone, you're not going to come off of it. But for people that don't want to go down that path, I totally respect that. You want to stay natural your whole life. That's cool too. But this will be the product. Now, let me add something to this. I would also say the other product that you would want to take in addition to Testogen is another oral bioregulator already in the marketplace that many people use now. It's called Testogluten. So if you take Testogluten and you take Testogen, and right now, again, Testogen is only injectable, but if you get both of them together, I would say that'll be the closest testosterone boosting supplement stack that you could ever take. It will shit all over Tonkat Ali. It will shit all over Fagodestria, all these different things that all these people in the market are selling. And again, I know some of those products do have, not tests, but studies that show transient elevations and increases and stuff like that. And a lot of people tell me that they use, Tribulus or Fagodosia or whatever, and they feel like they get a libido increase. I mean, look, man,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you mean Fadosia or
Whatever it is.
Fagodosia?
I call it Fagodosia. Because I think it is Fagodosia, right? Because to me, it's
FAG, right?
Sorry, I'm glad you said that. He caught me. No, but so check this out. Like, I do know people that say they feel like they get a libido increase from these products, right? And
Yeah.
As the guy who's written, the 2 number 1 selling books of all time on therapeutic testosterone, I've gone down every rabbit hole with those products and investigated all the science behind them. And I will always tell everyone, and I don't care who it is, like, you cannot prove to me that you get anything more than a transient increase, because that's what they show. So again, if your goal is to be optimized, you want to maintain it, right? So none of those things will ever keep a man optimized. It might give him a boost, but it's short term and it's transient. It's short lived. But if you look at these products, this is probably going to be that next level up where you will stay like let's just, to be conservative, let's say you get 30 to 40% of what TRT will give you. I think most men under the age of 30, yeah, of course. I think most men under the age of 30 will take that all day long. And as I was telling you today on our walk, you personally, because I'm going to send it to you when we have it, will take this as a man on TRT to see what it will do. Because again, the studies, the scientific research from Russia shows that it will optimize a man's endocrine system as he ages. So if you and I or any man who's been on TRT for 20 plus years gets on this, then theoretically it should improve your endocrine function.
Jay, I have a question, man, because like you said you've been using peptides since 2004, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you started, right? And it's really cool, both of you guys, kind of seeing the things that you've done as you age. And some of these things make me wonder, I'm only 32, right? What does optimization look like for you? Because you've been trying things and doing different things, and what is optimized for you? What like really ends up moving the needle? Because when you end up using so many things, what are you looking for?
Dude, he's 32 with a 2,000-year-old soul. I'm not joking. Anyway,
what's a 2,000-year-old soul mean?
Yeah. I think we're going to go there. That's an awesome question, bro. For me, it goes back to what I said about hormones. If I wake up in the morning and I feel good and I feel energetic and I feel like I'm ready to take on the world, that's optimized. I personally think that most people today are too caught up into tracking their data and their analytics and their health markers and their health metrics and all that stuff. And I think that that's literally like, it's not a bad thing per se, but people took too much emphasis on that, right? And again, I'm one of the people. I mean, you've been to my house. I mean, I have every biohacking gadget under the sun, right? Like I have all these things, but do I look at those as like prime movers in my life?
We were trying to go to sushi and he was like setting up these things. He's like, I got to get the mold out of my house. He's like, and he's like putting them all over the house and his like daughters are making fun of him and stuff.
Dude,
great.
There's nothing better than being a salesman and actually buying from other people, right? Because we're like the easiest laydowns, right? Like, oh yeah, sell this to me.
Yeah, exactly. I'll buy it. Yeah. Try it out. Why not?
But the truth is, it's a great question because I really think that we should really examine our lives from a standpoint of like, do we wake up in the morning and feel good? You know, do we have an energy about us that makes us want to take on our day? Are we excited to serve other people?
I first started hearing about transcriptions from Thomas DeLauer.
Yep.
And, you know, Thomas is somebody that's an animal with working out. You got a chance to work out with him. I worked out with him. And he's kind of always on the front lines of like, you know, finding out about these new companies that have cool things. But I didn't really realize that Transcriptions was the first company to put out methylene blue. And now look at methylene blue. It's so popular. It's everywhere.
It's one of those things. If you guys listen to this podcast, you know I'm very iffy with the supplements that I take because there's a lot of shady stuff out there.
You got to be careful.
The great thing about Transcriptions is that when people want to get methylene blue, usually they'll go on Amazon, they're going on these other sites. It's not third-party tested. It's not dosed. A lot of people end up with toxicity from the blue that they get because there's no testing of it. Transcriptions, they have third-party testing for their products. It's dosed, so you know easily what exact dose of methylene blue you're getting in each troche. So you're not making some type of mistake. There's not going to be anything in it. It's safe.
You can have it dissolve and you can turn your whole world blue if you want, or you can just swallow it. They have two different types of methylene blue. They have one that is, I believe, dosed at 16 milligrams, and they have another one that's dosed at 50 milligrams. So make sure you check the milligrams. I don't recommend anybody start at 50 milligrams, but the 16 I feel is very safe. You can also score the troches and you can break them up into smaller bits.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And in addition to that, on top of the methylene blue, they have a lot of other great products and stuff as well. They got stuff for sleep. They got stuff for calming down, all kinds of things.
I gotta say, I use it about 2 or 3 times a week. I use it before jiu-jitsu. And the cool thing that I've noticed, and I've paid attention to this over the past few months, is that after sessions, I don't feel as tired. So it's almost like I've become more efficient with just the way I use my body in these hard sessions of grappling. And it's like, cool, that means that, I mean, I could go for longer if I wanted to, and my recovery is better affected. It's pretty great.
I know Dr. Scott Schur, we had him on the podcast, and he talked quite a bit about how he recommends methylene blue to a lot of the athletes that he works with.
Yeah.
And they're seeing some profound impacts. And one of the things I've heard about it is that it can enhance red light. So those of you doing red light therapy, or those of you that have some opportunities to get out into some good sunlight, it might be a good idea to try some methylene blue before you go out on your walk or run outside or whatever activity it is that you're going to do outside.
And this stuff is great, but please, like, first off, they have that stuff for staying calm. They have stuff for sleep. But remember, this stuff isn't a substitution for sleep. This isn't a substitution for taking care of your nutrition. This is supposed to be an add-on to all the things that we already should be doing. And it's going to make things so much better if you're doing everything else too.
And I think this is just a little different too than just adding some magnesium to your diet. I think this is a little different than...
Yeah.
You know, treat these things appropriately. Make sure you do some of your own research. But
if you're taking medications, SSRIs, you better talk to your doctor first. Don't be popping these things.
And if you're taking any medications at all, it'd be good to double, triple, quadruple check and make sure that you're safe. Transcriptions has a lot of great things that you need, so go and check out their website when you have the opportunity. Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.
Shake their hand, look in their eyes, smile back at them and say, hey, it's so nice to meet you. It's so cool to be with you today. Thank you for sharing your energy with me. Like, to me, that is that's how you know if you're optimized or not. And I think all of us have days where we don't have that. You know, we wake up in the morning and we're like, oh my God, I mean, you know about me last night. I mean, I've been traveling so much in the last 2 months. I've been to pretty much everywhere on the planet. I've been to New Zealand. I've been to Australia. I've been, halfway around the world. And I was a little bit worn out. Since I got that new tech in my house, I've felt a lot better. And again, because obviously it's like a hyperbaric chamber. I've been doing a lot more hyperbaric stuff. Now, is that making me optimized? No, but it's allowing me to get better and deeper sleep. So it's a tool that pushes me maybe a little bit over the edge from a standpoint of like, if I didn't have it, would it affect me that much more? I think, again, depending on how hyper driven and how hyper motivated you are to do things, to be, to go, I think having these tools to push you over the edge when you otherwise might be a little bit tired and not have them, I think it's better. But in truth, like, I don't measure any of those biohacking tools as whether or not I'm optimized. I literally go by how I feel internally.
Okay. And what about sleep? What are some things that you've done that have really helped your sleep, whether it be just a habit or whether it be a technology piece?
Dude, great question. sleep has been a problem for me very recently because, as I told you about my story with 8 Sleep, for all you lovers of 8 Sleep, and I was one, I slept on an 8 Sleep mattress since 2019, man, it's bad news. It's radiating your body, the EMF, the dirty, dissonant EMF frequencies that are coming out of the modem and also the bed. The other thing is, and we should talk about this for 1 second, and this is interesting. And again, shout out to Brian Hoyer, the big EMF guy. He comes into your house, does, all the celebrities and, D1 athletes, not D1 athletes, but just major league and baseball and football and basketball. He goes in their houses and he, EMF proofs their house. And he just came into my house recently. He's an amazing guy. I love that guy. And he showed me what all the problems and hot spots in my house. And when he ran his gun over the 8 Sleep mattress, it was like devastating to me and my wife because we were sleeping at 55 degrees every night and saying, oh, this is amazing.
This makes my heart heavy.
Yeah, it's brutal. So anyway, bottom line is to improve sleep, you have to have and again, this is probably cliche, but you have to have a blacked out room. You cannot have phones, Wi-Fi signals, again, EMF emitting technologies that are anywhere close to your sleeping room. That is horrible sleep hygiene. And I would say that 80% of the people listening right now are violating this every single day. They go to sleep with that plugged in next to them. One of the things Brian was talking about was like, if you don't have EMF mitigating adapters and chargers, you're getting annihilated. Like you can't even believe it. Like we had our modem in a cool, like custom, you saw my bedroom nightstand and that's powered. And he was like, bro, you got to unplug this thing. You have any idea? And again, he's got a video. He's running his EMF gun.
Yeah,
his
the
meter.
chargers amplify and all that
Yes,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
So I think it's simple stuff. We're going back to ancestral stuff.
I do want to
here.
bring something up for 1 second is that, your phone is probably like usually like within hand's reach all the time. And I think that we hear like, oh, if it's in our front
100%,
pocket,
dude.
it, has negative sides or whatever. But
Yeah.
I would just say like, do your best to try to have your phone as far away from you.
I agree.
Like you don't always need it within arm's reach. You're sitting down and you're like watching TV or doing something different. See if you can have it like somewhere else, or maybe it's shut off, or I don't know if airplane mode makes things better, but just try to have the thing the hell away from you for a little while here and there.
It's great advice. I mean, we're all too attached to our phones. I mean, we all live in a very hyper mobile, hyper competitive world. And it's like, if you don't respond fast, somebody else will.
I love it too. I love being on the internet and checking shit out all the time.
I mean, we all do. And if we go down to the hyperdimensional thing, I'm going to tell you why that's bad. But like the reality is that we're all addicted to these screens, from our kids to us, to our work lives. But to go back to sleep, as you said, that should not be anywhere close to your sleep. You should not have a router in your bedroom. Most people have routers close to their bedroom. Ben Greenfield talks about having everything hardwired. Most people in a coastal urban population area like here, like Tampa, like any major city, that doesn't matter anymore. You cannot go wired in your house and think that you're going to avoid Wi-Fi. It's everywhere. As you said, you have a tower right out here. We have a tower close to us. But the way those things work is they work in packet signaling. So the closer you are, the more shielded you are to actually one of those Wi-Fi towers. But that's the thing is like, if you live in a major city, you're being bombarded. So what can you do? Again, blacked out, nothing on, nothing charging. I know I'm going to blow you guys' heads up when I tell you this, because this is what killed me about 8 Sleep too. Any mattress that has metal in it, you're a battery. You're being absolutely obliterated. Those things are literally giant transistors of Wi-Fi and 5G signals now. So if your mattress has box springs or wires or coils in it, you are being obliterated by EMF. It's insane. So again, people have $20,000, $15,000, $10,000 mattresses, the best of all kind, for all this for comfort and, pillow top and blah. And dude, if it has springs in it, you're being annihilated. Now, let me just say, 6 years ago when 8 Sleep came out, it wasn't a big deal. That was before 5G. So that's what people have to understand, is that we're not in the same time when people were originally making mattresses and box springs with wires and metal in them. We are now in a time where you can't have that in your bed because you're being obliterated. I'm telling you, man, like all you have to do is go to shieldedhealing.com. Everything on that website is free. Download his EMF mitigation protection for your family, for your home, for your office. Read that PDF. I mean, I've made so many changes.
What I always like to tell people is like, don't panic. Don't
No,
listen to the
you
show.
can't panic.
And
No.
don't go and panic and
No,
really
no, no,
worry.
no.
Just do whatever you can. Like do the best that you can in accordance to your budget, whenever you can get around to.
Dude, 100%. I literally was going to say that. Like,
There's a lot to think about.
This is 100%. This is all proactive, not reactive. Like, if you can afford this, and again, it's not super expensive. I'll be very honest and tell you guys everything I just paid. My mattress, I bought the Samina Sleep mattress, which is, by the way, the most expensive probably mattress in this. It's called a system because it's a frame and a mattress and a grounding pad and all these things. But to me, and again, they talk about this on their website. Again, it's Samina Sleep. We spend 30% of our life in our bed. So like, what is really technically expensive if you spend 30% of your life in your bed? It's not. So like me and my wife were just like, you know what, who cares? We're going to do it. Now, obviously not everyone can afford that cost of that bed, but there are other cheaper beds in the marketplace that are similar. So again, dude, it's not panic. It's not reaction. It's how can I be progressively proactive?
Just laughing right now because my kids think that I'm going to end up sleeping outside on the ground in like a teepee.
You would be better. I mean, so the other question,
where I'm heading.
But the other question is like, what else can you do? I mean, you guys, I'm not joking when I tell you this. I'm literally painting my master bedroom. I'm going to paint the EMF protection paint on the walls. I mean, Monica wanted to repaint our master anyway because we haven't painted since we bought the house 2 years ago. So I'm going to put the EMF protection paint on Gabby, Alex, my daughters, and our master bedrooms where we sleep. And then we'll just, hey, you get to repaint your bedrooms, right? So we'll have somebody come in. But I'm telling you, he also showed me that most wiring in most of our houses is not right. If you have a smart refrigerator, a smart TV, a smart microwave, a smart anything, most of us have smart washers and dryers. He's like, dude, they are radiating too because most of the people that set them up don't know how to wire them correctly. So again, do you have to change all this? Of course not. But can you become progressively proactive and take little, baby steps, little by little to do things? The number one thing that all of us can do immediately is to black out our bedrooms and stop charging anything in our bedrooms.
And there is a reason why electricians wear, what they wear is because they have to be protected.
Literally.
The union has stepped in and said these guys need to be protected when they're putting in these wires and these different things. So it's obvious it does something to our biology.
Sadly,
how negative it is, it's hard to tell.
I mean, again, I've been reading a lot of this and really gone down this rabbit hole in the last 3 months, but 5 years ago, it was not a problem.
Is there any way to rewind your 8 sleep to its 5 years ago, 6 years ago settings? Like, is there any way to at least do that?
No, because here's the answer. If you live in the mountains and you have no civilization around you and you don't have dissonant frequency waves, you could probably get along by, you would still be affected by the modem irradiating your body. But if you live in a major city, do you have one in your house right now?
Yeah, an 8 sleep. Yeah, man. I've been sleeping on that thing for years.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah, I've been sleeping on it for 5 years. No. Here, major cities, you're just being annihilated. Yeah. I mean, if you had him come into your house and you saw like what it's doing to your body every day, dude, like we did, you'd be like, damn, because it's that bad. Again, I'm not trying to scare you. I mean, believe me, we love that. And I thought about it whenever I would travel the world. I'd be thinking like, damn, I got to get back into my mattress, so I can sleep on it.
Let me ask you this. I mean, I think, there have been people that have come onto this show and talked about this, but when it comes to this EMF stuff, what are some of the drawbacks that you might notice over time? Because again, maybe it's just because I'm young, but I don't feel these things yet. What would they potentially cause?
Oh, you just wait, bro.
Yeah,
no,
dude.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. My business partner's your age. He's a year younger than you, 31, and he doesn't feel any of these things either. He's just taking proactive steps. He's wearing these. You're young and vital and you're in your prime. So you're not going to feel the things that somebody a little bit older than you. And again, I'm 54, I have no problem saying that. My sleep has been disturbed a lot in the last 6 months. Was it because of my travel? Was it because of my diet? Was I eating food, past 8 o'clock? Because sometimes I will do that if I have a busy day and I'm like starving to death and I fasted 22 hours or whatever and I'm go and eat. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of factors. But as I've started to clean up my sleep hygiene, my health and my overall sense of well-being and energy has improved. So, is it a combination of things along with the EMF. I mean, I can tell you this for a fact. I've not been sleeping in the the 8 Sleep mattress for 10 days now, and I feel way better. And I always, again, noticeable as your question, I never felt that I wasn't feeling okay when I was on my 8 Sleep, but the guys that, own the Samina sleep system, the German guys, shout out to Klaus, he will tell you have to detox for literally 7 to 10 days from being on an 8 Sleep because you don't really realize it until you're sleeping in a naturally grounded, shielded environment or bed. And again, to what you were saying, like what's best is ancestral. All this technology, if we go down that rabbit hole and start talking about hyperdimensionality, none of this is beneficial to us. It is all toys. They're, implements that are being offered to us. They don't improve our life. I mean, AI, can you use AI for beneficial things? Of course, but is AI by its very nature beneficial to human sovereignty? Absolutely not. Anybody who says that it is clueless. They don't understand what's going on. Like technology, if we allow technology to take over us and to allow us to think, which many young people are doing, I told you this when you were here at our house, like when we came back from that summit, a lot of the influencers and people like us, and we were all talking amongst ourselves, were literally joking around about how people were responding to their messages with AI. That's where we're at, bro. Mm-hmm. That's not good. What do you think is happening to the human brain when you don't think?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, all of this is going down a very precipitous slope that I hate even discussing. But when you start, I should show you this. Some guy, I was going to show you this and I completely forgot. Some guy sent me a message today where he typed the message in the subject line and hit send. It was literally like 20 emails in the subject line. And it was this message.
Yeah.
And I had to like double click on it inside of my computer to see what he said. Mm-hmm. But so that's where we're at, right? Like people are not thinking. They're using AI to conjugate a thought, an expression of a word, a verb, a phrase or whatever. And we're like I said, we're on a precipitous path or a precipitous slope. And I don't really think that it ends well unless we reclaim our sovereignty and we start taking over progressively what we can and can't control. And I just see, not to you, because obviously you're different, but like people younger are allowing it to completely take over their lives. I mean, I read the threads on X and Instagram, and dude, AI is God to these people. Like you see all the young entrepreneur hustler guys saying, AI is the thing, bro. If you don't take advantage of AI, you're done. You can't scale. I see it all. And I'm just like, dudes, like, what do you really think is important in this world that we're living in, So don't get me wrong. AI is a tool. And like anything else, it can be harnessed and used efficiently and productively. But when you allow it to take over your life, which I see a lot of people doing, that's when we're in a bad path. That's when we know we're headed down the wrong path.
I want to switch gears here for a second because maybe people aren't aware, but people that have pets, people that have dogs and cats and so forth, peptides are being used for dogs and cats. And, sometimes a dog has like a bad hip or an injury or they run into all kinds of problems and people are utilizing peptides for this sometimes, right?
100%. Peptides are, obviously everybody has fur babies probably listening to the show. We have 2 dogs in my house. I'm sure I'm going to meet your dogs pretty soon. Pets can live just as long. Not can live as long as a human, but obviously from a figuratively standpoint, they can, but they also have to be, given specific things. I always say this about pets, carbon 60 is huge for animals. Carbon 60 will extend the life of any animal.
And that's just a fat, right?
Yeah,
it's like an MCT type of thing, right?
It's literally, it's a version of like palmitic acid with, it's basically a molecular sponge. It's a very powerful antioxidant. But my little rat dog, which you met, he's alive right now because of carbon 60. We started giving him carbon 60 in 2019. He was done.
What is it doing for him?
It's just a very powerful antioxidant. So it's like improving cellular pathways and improving their regenerative pathways. So it helps them dramatically. But yeah, I have so many friends that give their dogs BPC and TB-500. I know people that give their dogs, Deca and testosterone.
Yo, why?
What? Because, dude,
Deca can help with the
because
joints,
it enhances all sorts of metabolic function. Look, eventually we will know that testosterone enhances life. There's plenty of studies out there that shows. Again, you've got so many people
in
saying
male
that
or
it
female.
does. Well, I mean, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, it enhances female life better than it enhances male life because, again, women naturally aromatize testosterone into healthy levels of estrogen, which is what makes them women, right? I mean, again, the differentiation between a man and women is their amount of testosterone in their body. A lot of people don't understand that. There's no differentiation between men and women other than the amount of testosterone that fetus was exposed in utero. So if you want to make a woman a man, you give them more testosterone in utero, right? I mean, we don't want to get into the craziness of all the trans stuff and all that stuff's going on. But I mean, I've been saying this literally for 10 years and it's now scientifically verifiable. The reason we have so much identity confusion and we have so many people who are confused from a standpoint of their biology is because they don't have testosterone in utero. And this is all due to biochemical contamination. This is due to birth control in the water supply. You know, you can bring Dr. Anthony Jay. Has he been on the show?
No.
You can bring him on. I mean, he's the world's leading expert in all this stuff. And he will tell you that gender dysphoria, confusion, all this stuff is happening because these people are chemically castrated. They do not have enough testosterone or estrogen or combination in utero, in the womb. And so when they come out, they're confused. They don't know whether they're man or woman. That's what's happening. And this is, again, all attributable to our environment being contaminated. And are you going to see this in studies? No. Is the EPA talking about this? Of course not. You know, there's a bigger picture beyond all this, but I mean, you know, is it purposeful or was it just the inevitable consequences of modernization? I think it's a combination of both. But this is where we are now in our society. And so if you really want to understand what's really happening, why men are becoming less men and women are becoming less women, you have to look at hormones. And hormones as the origin, again, in utero, people have less. I mean, dude, there's guys out there now with studies showing that the bone mineral density of people now that are under the age of 20 is less than 20 years ago. And again, this is from the byproduct of the chemical and toxin onslaught of our modern day society. Plastics, BPA, endocrine disrupting chemicals. I mean, it's everywhere, right? Air, food, and water. We can't avoid it. I mean, look at us, all of us. We all have plastic. We all have tin. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something around us, EMF, petroleum distillate. There's something around us that is not good for us from an ancestral, natural standpoint.
Yeah, and it's just going on all the time. I think that's the main thing, right? So the 8-sleep mattress type thing, it's well, you're spending quite a bit of time in that bedroom, laying on that bed, and we're just getting exposure to the phone and to the TV, and it just goes on and on and on. If it was one dose of something small here and there, if it was only the phone, or if it was only a TV, or if it was only something, like I mentioned earlier, we're getting microwaved all the time. Totally. It used to be that you just didn't stand in front of your microwave, but now you're permanently in a microwave, basically.
It's crazy to think about that. But yeah, I mean, Dom, when, shout out to Dom, the bioidentical dentist from Germany, he was talking because after you left, we went and saw him before he went back to Miami and flew back to Germany that following weekend. And he was staying at a house in Tampa, Airbnb they had, and they didn't have a microwave in there. And I was like, don't you just microwave? And he's like, bro, in Germany, we don't even have microwaves. They don't use them because they're so bad for you. Right?
That's crazy.
But in the United States, we all have microwaves. We all use microwaves to reheat food and, heat up nutrition meals or packaged meals.
What's their standard then?
They don't have microwaves. They just use a heating pad or a stove or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You go to foreign countries and you see standards that they have not adopted. I mean, again, one of the things I say specifically all the time is when you're in New Zealand, the food tastes way better because they don't have any chemicals. There's no atrazine. There's no glyphosate. All the animals are farmed locally, in New Zealand farms. They're killed sustainably. I love when people say they killed the animal sustainably. But I mean, it is, right? It doesn't know. It grows. It lives there. It's never herded onto a truck and stampeded out and then slaughtered at a slaughterhouse. They grow and they naturally, and then somebody comes up and hit them behind the head and knocks them out, and then they cut them up and we eat them. I mean, and that's, if there's an evolutionary ecosystem, that's how it works. But not in America, right? Where we're slaughtering the animals in slaughterhouses and their blood is becoming adrenalized and we eat that then. And you know that. I mean, you're the guy with carnivore protein and all that stuff and bubs and all that stuff. So, I mean, we understand where this is going, but it's you have to leave this country and see how it's done in other places to really observe it and taste it and feel it and to know that there's a big difference.
What are some things that you do for the brain? I know that you're big on that and, with your entrepreneurship and energy that you want to bring to each and every day. What are some things you do to help keep like a balanced mind, or a mind that's going to be able to retain a lot of information and stuff like that?
So that's a great question. So when people ask me what's the world's strongest nootropic, I always say one thing: therapeutic testosterone. If you look at what testosterone does to cognitive thought, dopamine signaling, short-term and long-term memory, there's nothing more profound. There's nothing more powerful than that. Again, balance though, right?
And you were saying that your brain's faster than somebody that maybe isn't taking testosterone.
That's a fact. Like, again, are there outliers? Of course. Are younger people going to have stronger brain patterning than older people? Of course. But if you take an average person in society and you put them on therapeutic testosterone and then you optimize their hormones while they're on that, their brain speed is faster than someone who's not. That is an absolute fact. There's studies, there's all sorts of stuff. Harvard's done a lot of studies on that. In fact, therapeutic testosterone makes a man strategic and tactical in their thoughts versus the bro science of, it makes you unbalanced and roid rage. I mean, I do not know, and again, I've said this on many shows and many interviews, I do not know any person in our space who's using therapeutic testosterone who hasn't become more surgical and more tactical in their world than before, right? And again, I'm the testosterone guy, so I hear this from thousands and thousands of guys. I hear this from hundreds and hundreds of aspiring entrepreneurs. And so I know that it does that. But to your question, what can you do to improve brain health? Sleep is huge. We're all sleep deprived today because of these. And again, you're not sleep deprived if you live in the wilds of Montana or Wyoming and you have nothing around you. Okay. And you're sleeping in a quote unquote ancestral environment. And by the way, Brian Hoyer, the EMF guy, says if you put a Faraday cage around your bed, you can be ancestral. And because people are going to ask, how much does a Faraday cage cost around your bed? Depending on the size of your bed, it's $2,000 to $5,000. So if you have a California king like me and you, it's $5K. And you got top of the line.
How do you get one of those?
So he comes out to your house and they do it. They just install it right around your bed. But he swears that if you put the paint in your bedroom and then put a Faraday cage around your bed, you won't. He says it's so life altering. And again, I have no idea, so I'm just speaking from what I've heard. But Ben Greenfield has it. Brecka has it.
I think Gary Brecka showed some videos of it.
They all say it's the most life altering thing. I mean, Ben has been texting me you got to do it, bro. And these guys, they're not getting paid for recommending this. I mean, yeah, they have affiliate deals with these companies, but it's insane.
It just looks kind of cool. It reminds me of being a kid and you build a fort.
Brian told me, he's like, look, bro, if you put that in there, you and Monica will literally, you won't believe it.
That's it. I'm getting one.
So he
literally said that you will not believe it. It's like sleeping outside with the stars. And he said it's life altering. I mean, again, I have no idea. I've just heard from other people who have said it, but yeah, it's not really, again, when you factor in how long you're in your bed, is it not worth doing it?
I like that idea because it cuts out. I mean, I'm sure he's still going to recommend and suggest that you do, have other measures, but it just eliminates all the other guesswork since you're literally in a cage that doesn't allow anything to come in.
There's one, so I'll send you, so you can post this with the show notes or whatever. I'll send you guys his report and you guys can use it if you want to use it or not use it. It's pretty cool. It's very, very, he doesn't try to make money. He just says what I would do, optimal Rolls Royce, right? If you want to do everything, but he basically will show you that one of the big prime movers is you buy a dirty electricity box. Do you guys have solar?
Yes.
Dude.
I know.
I had solar when I lived in San Diego too, and don't even get me going. That's such a scam
Solar
in
is not
California.
a good idea.
Solar is irradiating your body insanely unless you have protective measures. So you
And
have
I have a
to
Tesla too.
Yeah.
All right. I sold it, but
that's bad too. Yeah. So the reality is, dude, it's
frying your balls all day long.
electric cars shorten lifespans. That's a fact. Because they don't have all the manufacturers. This is truth. And again, do you know what's his name? Justin Franson in Southern California. Do you know him?
No.
So he's a guy that talks about what the electric cars are doing. But all the manufacturers could easily take and implement Faraday cages around the ECU, but it's too much money. They lose profit. So they don't do it. But I'm not joking. He says this. This is scary shit. If you sit, which most people in major cities, because they're in traffic, if you sit in your car in the morning and charge while you're working, 10 years off your life. Jeez. 10 years off your life. That's how bad it is.
You do it one time?
No, he's saying if you're just regularly sitting in
I see.
there
Yeah,
charging,
yeah.
which most people do, right? Because they have a commute. So anyway, we just rabbit holed. What were we talking about right before that I wanted to say about? Oh, the box. So if you have solar, he sells an $1,800 box. It's called Shielded Healing's Dirty Electric Remover. And you put that in your house, that's going to do more than any of the other implements. Because that is going to get rid of surges and all of our smart meters and smart machinery and smart technology, which is constantly causing surges. See, that's what we don't realize. The other thing is like here, right? All of us, him over there, all of us in this room, we're being bombarded with tech right now. And so he says that if you have a studio like this, you should have one of those dirty shields to block, again, the surges. Because he says the surges are actually more powerful than the actual harmful dissonant EMF. So if you just break that down, and when I looked at that, I was like, wow, it's $1,800. I'm sure it's going to cost an electrician and a professional install is going to cost me another $400 or $500, because they put it right on your panel. But that would be your thing, right? So it's like, and then if you want to go deep down the rabbit hole and you want to paint all of your kids' rooms and your wife and yours room, that would be your next thing. And by the way, that's not expensive. You can paint a master bedroom, a sizable one for probably like $1,200, $1,500. So it's not a big deal. And that's with install, you know what I mean? And by the way, it's, you paint it black and then you prime it and then you paint over it. And that's how it works. The other thing is, and this is what I just spent $4,000 on because I'm like, you know what? He told me, he's like, dude, your daughters, they're charging next to their bed. They've got, all these like unprotected, not plugged in not routers, but plugs. He's like, you got to upgrade your plugs. You got to get real power inverters that actually are protected.
What are those?
Just like power blocks. Like you probably have one down here now, like wherever you set your power onto, but like they're all unshielded in dirty electricity. So you've got to get the ones that are shielded. So I literally got I just said, you know what? I'm spending the money. I'm getting rid of all the bad plugs.
It's tough to get your kids to get that shit out of their room, or just have it be away from them a little bit.
So the plugs are like if you're a Mac house or a PC house, the Mac plugs are 90 and the PC plugs are 75, right? And so you're gonna, depending on how many bedrooms, how many kids, you're probably gonna spend. I mean, I bought for our room, for the studio, for everything, like wherever I had a circuit breaker, not a circuit breaker, what are these called? The multiple prong things you got?
Yeah, just power strips.
Yeah, power strips. I couldn't think of what it's called. So I got 6 of those, and then I got as many plugs as I could, portable and plugging in my house. And then the other thing he recommends if you want to do is like you can actually get the shielded. So you take out your outlets and you put shielded outlets in. And the new shielded ones that they sell actually have USB-C and USB-A built into it. So you can just plug right in. And what's cool about that, and I didn't know this, but he's like, dude, if you plug into there, you can plug it right next to your head. You just got to turn your phone off. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it completely transmutes the negative frequency. So, I mean, I didn't think we were going to even talk about this. I did want to talk a little bit about hyperdimensionality if you want to go down there, because I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of people are becoming spiritually inclined and waking up today. But I personally do think that if you mitigate EMF from the baby steps to whether or not you can afford going deeper, I think it'll change your life in a lot of ways. Mm. I've heard from too many smart people, in our space who have all said that, once I did what Brian Hoyer said, everything improved. I mean, I think young kids' minds, who are so impressionable and they're on screens all day, whether it's TikTok or Snapchat or whatever they're on, I think that'll help too.
Any good tips for the phone, or especially like a lot of kids are on like tablets and stuff like that? Is there anything you can put like on the phone or on the tablet to assist and have it just be less dangerous?
No, I think it's just moderating use. I think that all of us as parents, and it's hard, right? Especially high school kids, because they need their technology to perform, to do their homework, to do everything, to keep up with the Joneses. We regulate our kids. It's 6 o'clock. You're done. The freshman, might ever now and then have to then go on her MacBook Pro to do homework. And of course, my junior, Alex, the one you met, she has to be on there, but their phones are in our hands. There's none of that. So, I mean, I just think that you just have to regulate usage. But I mean, I'll be the first one to admit it's getting harder and harder because the kids need it. They gotta work with it. They're doing stuff that is involving their tablet, laptop, or phone.
We were talking about the brain and biohacks, I guess, for the brain, and we ended up talking a lot about sleep. But what are some other things that you've done that you feel has been really helpful, whether it's memorization or focus or whatever?
So it's a great question. So sleep for sure. I think naps are huge. I think that right now, if you can sleep 7 hours uninterrupted, well, here's my problem. So I'm 54. I told you I have a prostate issue. I've had it since I was late 20s, before I ever even started therapeutic testosterone or doing anything else. I always have to wake up and take pee once a night, right? Do you do that?
I do.
Okay. So most men...
I've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah,
too,
exactly. So most men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, especially men on therapeutic testosterone, usually have to wake up. And again, this is natural hypertrophy of the prostate, right? BPH, benign prostate hypertrophy. As we get older, it increases in size and swells. And so you do that. So if you have it where it's like you're waking up twice, your sleep is disturbed. Why do you wake up twice? Is it prostate related or is it this related? It's usually this related, right? Guys like us, we're drinking a lot of water. We have increased metabolic demands, increased electrolyte demands. So like we're drinking a lot of water. So
Maybe
like,
you worked out later, or you just didn't get a chance to drink enough water, and then you're pounding it before you go to bed.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't with water or with hydration, because it's bad if you're dehydrated. You might wake up less, but you're still dehydrated cellularly, so that's bad, versus being hydrated but waking up more than once. Right? Like last night, I mean, dude, my body was so melted down. I woke up twice to go to the bathroom last night, and that's kind of normal for me now. So I would say for a guy to have really peak functioning brain power, if you can get again, depending on your age, let's just say you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s or older, if you can get it to where you're only waking up once a night, that's a good path. I think naps are critically important. I think that 5 to 7 to 9, even 12 minutes, most people can't do it for 12 minutes, but if you can do a 5, 7, 9 minute power nap in the middle of the day, whether you're standing, sitting in a lazy boy, or even have a place, like if you're in a company and you're a wage slave and you have a place where they have sleep quarters and you can do that, I think that's dramatic. I just think that the more we can get polyphasic restorative sleep in a 24-hour, circadian rhythm cycle, the better we're going to be. Now, as far as like what can you take, there's really nothing. Like I don't drink caffeine anymore. Every now and then, if I'm completely melted down and I have to function, I'll take like a powder form of caffeine, but it's not even a strong cup of coffee. We are over caffeinated. I'm sure you've had people tell that.
Yeah.
Caffeine is a very, very potent, was responsible for the Industrial Revolution. Shout out to caffeine. But at the same time, most people's adrenals are shot because they overconsume caffeine. So replace caffeine with something else.
How do you feel about low caffeine teas? Because like I usually do like decaf or
absolutely amazing.
Like green tea or
Load
something.
them up with polyphenols. Amazing.
Okay.
Amazing. Those are great.
Do you
for
do tea anymore? Or because you said no caffeine. So do you even not really drink tea?
So if I'm going to take something, I take teacrine. I don't take tea, right? So teacrine is obviously one of those magical, call them stimulants for the brain, where it literally upregulate you, but won't cause any kind of side effects or any receptor attenuation. But you can get that cheap off Amazon. I'll take like a 200 milligram one of those. The two things though that I will mention that I would use and do use every now and then are, one is a drug, it's tesofensine. I'm sure you're familiar with it. We do sell it at BioLongevity Labs. Tesofensine is also an orphaned drug that started off as, again, I hate saying this because I'm so anti-SSRIs, but it started off as an experimental down that path of becoming an SSRI, and they orphaned it. The biohacking community found out about it about 5 years ago because it actually has this incredible ability to dull appetite and increase metabolism. But when you look at the drug's pharmacokinetic and dynamics, you see that it increases BDNF. So brain-derived neurotropic factor is obviously the flow state that we want in our brain. So if you use a microdose of that drug on days that you're really, really cognitively in a cognitively demanding task, it's an awesome drug. I love that drug. By the way, it also has this rare ability to not cause receptor attenuation or addiction. So you can cold turkey it. You could use it for 2 years in a row and stop taking it and you have no effects, no side effects, no symptoms. Now, people who have taken SSRIs in their life, who have their brains rewired and have a lot of issues of synaptic and prefrontal cortex and serotonergic pathways, when they take that, they literally will tell us that they'll lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling, like thinking about all the work they have to do because they can't sleep. Because it's doing something to undo the harm that the SSRI caused. So again, that's just a side note to that. The other one is our product now, which you guys can Google real quick, is called BioMind, which Alex designed.
You gave me some. I haven't even tried it yet.
Oh, you haven't taken it yet?
I haven't
Dude,
taken it.
I was hopeful that you took it. So we gave that out last week as samples at the A4M conference in Florida, and every single person that we gave it to like 7 people in the morning, all came back later that day and say, how do I buy this? So again, shout out to Alex. He designed this. That has a potent stage 2 Alzheimer drug that is raving in the studies called J147. And then it also has Nupept, which you guys are familiar with, which is a racetam. And then also has, what's the third?
Nupep's supposed to help you.
I can't even think of what's the third. Dihexa, which is a very powerful nootropic peptide. Now, I'm very...
So this can help with learning. Like
dude,
if you're learning something new, right?
I mean, again, I don't want to make this commercial for our company, but this is the strongest oral nootropic supplement in the marketplace right now. There's nothing that comes close. And again, it's an oral supplement that we sell as a small molecule, but it's basically 3 drugs are in it. I mean, it's as simple as that in microdoses. And they're all very synergistic to enhancing, call it the prefrontal cortex, neurocognitive pathways, neurogenesis. I mean, it's very, very powerful, but it's not jittery. It's not increasing beta adrenergic stimulation. It's not increasing heart rate. It's not making people it's not like an upper. It's not Adderall. It's not Vyvanse. It's not any of that shit. It's just, the best way I can say it is you take it, everything gets brighter. And by the way, I'm not on it right now because I don't have any because we can't keep it in stock. But it's very, very powerful. And if I was going to take something, it would always be a rotation of tesofensine, maybe once or twice a month when I really needed it. And then I would take BioMind like 2 or 3 times a week. You could even just take it twice a week. Again, in the research, and Alex worked with people for a couple of years with it, there's no real side effects. There's no come down. It's not addictive. And again, it's not stimulating heart rate. So it's not making you jittery, or it's not burning out your receptors or burning out your adrenals or anything like that.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you, going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice.
Super cool. Well, where can people get all this stuff? Where can people find you? I know you have, let's talk about your book too, that you wrote a while back, and that has a lot of success behind it. So where can people pick that up and check that out too? For
sure. So I have a site on my site. So by the way, all my info is available for free. I give away everything for free. I'm a service to others being, as you know. for me, it's about how many people can I help. It's not about how much money. I know you hear people say it's cliche, but I really, truly do desire to help as many people as I possibly can. So I give away all my stuff for free. If you go to jaycampbell.com/free books, you will see all of my books that I've written available as a free PDF downloadable. We also have a ton of content that are like free lead magnets, like the 10 questions to ask your doctor when you start therapeutic testosterone, the 10 mistakes that people shouldn't make when they start peptides. I mean, there's just so much free stuff that's there. And then obviously, you can find old podcasts and stuff like that. Hopefully, eventually we'll put this podcast up there.
A guest that we just had on the show, he was talking about how that's how he got started. He read your book.
That's awesome. Which one? The TOT Bible?
Yes.
Yeah. So the TOT Bible was the second book I wrote on therapeutic testosterone, published in 2018. It was really it was probably the first book that really brought me into the marketplace and people started finding out about me. But my first book, which was in 2015, the one I told you about this morning with Nelson, was called The Definitive TRT Manual. And that's a really, really powerful book. Like, that book has sold just a few less than the TOT Bible, but those books are still the number 1 and number 2 selling books ever on therapeutic testosterone.
You still feel as strongly about what you wrote then when you look at it, or you're like, hey, I was pretty good. I was on point, pretty good with a lot of stuff.
So it's 80% right. Right. So that's
pretty good. Yeah. Because things change so quick, right?
Dramatically. And very truthfully, the women's stuff in that book is off. It's probably 50% off. Right now, Hunter and I, my business partner, shout out to Hunter Williams, we are writing or creating a course that's going to be called Quantum TRT. And I promise anyone listening to this that it will be the de novo standard for what you should do. Let's talk about this for a second, because I think this is important. We talked about this morning.
I forgot about your hyperdimensional stuff too.
Oh no, we can go down that path.
I think we do need to talk about that a little bit before we get out of here.
This is an amazing podcast. So truthfully, this is what needs to be done in testosterone today, therapeutic testosterone. We obviously know we don't block estrogen. We don't have to talk about AIs. Anybody who still prescribes AIs does not understand the purpose of estrogen in therapeutic hormones. And by the way, this is for men and women.
Yeah, you were saying 1 milligram for men, right? With a shot of testosterone.
When you say AIs, what do you mean, by the way?
Aromatase inhibitor medication. Okay. So 90%, sadly, because it just seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse, of doctors in the space today in the United States, let's just call it the West, because outside of the West, there's still not even hormone optimization. It's insane. Most guys in Europe that are our friends that are on testosterone, they do it by themselves underground because they don't have a doctor that can prescribe. They don't have the knowledge. It's insane. But the truth is that blocking estrogen or blocking the conversion of estrogen when you're on therapeutic testosterone is a lifespan shortener. It's a cell toxin, an aromatase inhibitor, just like a DHT inhibitor is a cell toxin, so is an AI. We are now finding out that due to the desensitization of androgen receptors because of our toxin load, most men are not absorbing testosterone at the tissue level like they did 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago, right? So how do we overcome that? We used to think the answer was by giving them more testosterone. We now know it's partially that, but we now know it's also providing therapeutic estrogen at the same time they get testosterone. I'm seeing this has probably been going on for a year now. I'm seeing men who inject estradiol cypionate at somewhere between half a milligram to 1 milligram with every shot of TRT, seeing incredible results. Improved libido, increased brain function, enhanced well-being, just a sense of wow, like I'm doing it. I've been doing it now for 6 months.
You start cooking and cleaning a little bit more too?
It's a game changer.
I'm kidding.
It's a good question. And I'm glad you said that though, Mark, because most people think that estrogen is a female hormone and they think that estrogen is responsible for femininity and emotions and all that stuff. It's the exact opposite. In fact, my mentors in this space, I'll give them a shout out, Dr. Keith Nichols, Dr. Rob Komenarek, Dr. Neil Rougier. These guys are the fathers of hormone optimization and they really understand this. Like, Dr. Neil Rougier has been literally prescribing estrogen to his male patients on TRT for 6 years. He's got guys taking as high as 5 milligrams a day, right? And to me, that's too much, but obviously everybody's biochemically unique. Some people have that need medicinally, but if you give a man today who's on therapeutic testosterone, a tiny, tiny microdose of estrogen, you are enhancing the effects of testosterone at the tissue level, right? And only good things come. Where there's an issue potentially is if a man has a prostate issue. Because if you give them too much estrogen, the studies show that too much testosterone and estrogen can convert to a different form of estradiol, which can exacerbate BPH or expand the swelling of the prostate. Most of the time it's transient and doesn't last, but again, you want to avoid that. But most guys that are injecting estradiol in very microdoses along with their testosterone today just rave about it. They're like, wow, this is a game changer. So that's what I would say about testosterone. Now let's talk about hyperdimensionality.
Yeah, what the hell is that? I've never heard of it until you mentioned it today.
Okay, so as I told you, I've always been a seeker. Before I became this TRT guy, peptides guy, I was always like going down the paths and rabbit holes of consciousness and understanding like who we are and why we are what we are and what's going on here living in this realm. And thankfully, I was introduced to the works of a woman by the name of Laura Knight-Yadchik, and she is a genius researcher who now lives in France. She's an American, but she basically wrote a book called the Wave series. And it's basically a book about, I mean, everything. It's, you know, the truth about our reality, quantum physics. I mean, everything that is like now like hot spots of stuff that people talk about today, she was writing about in the early 90s. But she was heavily suppressed. No one, I mean, you guys have never heard of this person, I guarantee you. And you should, because she's one of the greatest writers of all time, one of the smartest people on the planet. But her stuff has been heavily suppressed. Anyway, since once I started I read all of her books, and the Wave series is a series of 8 books. Maybe it's 9. It's 8 or 9 books. Anyway, she covers everything about reality, but what you learn in that book series, and again, this is not just her, because she has been able to basically quantify thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years of other authors and other research and put them all together in this book. But it's basically, she's also talking to a hyperdimensional consciousness. It's essentially us from the future, like way in the future, who is telling her, not by interfering in our world, but basically giving her information that comes from the future when we ask the right questions. That again, doesn't upset like our current reality of like what is to come and what is going on. And so as I started becoming familiar with this information, in the last 3 years, like I've really understood what hyperdimensionality is. And so basically what is hyperdimensionality? It's understanding that we are not the top of the food chain. That as beings in third density, which is again, I was telling you this morning, let's quantify this. First density is this. Second density is animals and plant life. Third density is humans. Fourth density is above us. Think of it as a biphasic human. So that means it's like physical in a meat modem suit, but it's also energetic. So you could be energetic, right? So you hear people talk about they leave their body, they astral project. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of being able to astral project on a thought versus moving back into a physical body. That would be fourth density. Fifth density would be basically where we go when we die. So think of like again, when we die, I mean the physical body expires, right? Because our energy, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, goes to fifth density, which is called the zone of contemplation. In the zone of contemplation, we then have our soul review, life review, whatever you want to call it. And then we are, given tasks by, call it an angelic group, a soul group, a family group, whatever, to where go next. And then there's 2 densities higher than that. Think of 6th density would be archangels. If you're Christian and you believe in angels and you believe in like higher, guidance and divine beings, that's what 6th density is. And then 7th density would be God or source consciousness, universal consciousness, however you see it. Is there densities above that? Most likely. But we, from our level of reality and our level of understanding in this third density body and this consciousness in this physical body, that's how we explain and understand it. So when you become cognizant of that, and this is weird, we eat animals. Who eats us? Right? There are beings eating us. Are we being eaten physically or are we being eaten energetically? Both. The 4th density beings that are higher than us, which is going on right now. I mean, all you have to do is look at COVID. You can look at adrenochrome harvesting, sex trafficking, organ harvesting, all of that stuff. When they come into our reality, remember, they're biphasic. They have to eat things just like we eat things to sustain a physical body's life and nourishment. So in 4th density, they don't have to, right? The way you look at the 7 densities is like they can look down when they're higher than us, but we can't look up. We're limited in our 3rd density view, right? So densities 7 are different than dimensions. Dimensions are unlimited per density. So when you talk about Avengers and you talk about the laws of the multiverse, there's unlimited time stamps and time frames in a density level. So like in third density is the multiverse. So you've got a different Mark Bell and a different Jay Campbell at different times and spaces in the multiverse, right? So there could be a different, all things exist, all permutations exist in the hyperdimensional aspect of the multiverse. But in the 7 densities, like fourth density is a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness, a higher level of existence than third density. But there would be also a multiverse in fourth. And then fifth, again, if it's the zone of contemplation, it's like where we go to be not, I guess you could say judged. Again, it's your review. You just died and now you're going, to where souls go. Then sixth is like you're energetic. You're just an energetic construct. You don't have a physical body. You're just energy, right? Again, an archangel or something like that. And then seventh, I don't know how to explain it. It would just be God. It's like omniscience, all source, all knowing, all consciousness, and you're more than energy. You're probably just everything, and you're everything and anything, I think is the best way to say it. But if you're going back to the whole realm of understanding hyperdimensionality, if there are beings above us that eat us both energetically and physically, then you start realizing that you're not the top of the food chain. And so then you get to a place of like, okay, well, if I'm in third density right now in this physical body, what is my goal? And your goal, and again, we don't all get to this level of awareness. I think we have to work to get there, but your goal is to serve at your highest and best, right? Because if we're all here as spiritual beings to evolve and grow our souls or to evolve and grow our consciousness, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by serving others. You have a choice in this level of reality to serve self, which is what most people do. And I'm not saying that to you, I'm just saying all of us. When you're born into a physical body in third density, you're immediately serving self. Because you have to eat, shit, F-U-C-K, to survive. Like these are literally parts of us that we have to do. They're non-negotiable. But we get to a level of understanding, hopefully, that we can choose to serve others. And if we choose to serve others, and I know you choose to serve others, and I'm sure you guys all serve others, by what we're doing right now, we're serving others. If you make this a general part of your day and your day-to-day life, it's my belief, it's my opinion, it's my knowing that you will get the ability to graduate to the next level of reality. So if we get to the next level of reality being fourth density, there's service to others, fourth density, and there's service to self, fourth density. Service to self, fourth density is like the evil. It's the negative beings. It's the reptilians. It's the grays. It's the mantids. It's all these things that people talk about in the esoteric teachings that exist at that level of reality that are purely service to self. So they serve self only. And so if you're in this reality of third density and all you give a shit about is money and fucking people over, then guess who's running your life and who's observing you and who's connected to your energy. So we always have a choice, in my opinion, to serve others and connect to those higher density benevolent beings, or serve self and be under the yoke of the dark side. And I think in our reality, if you think about this, like if you think of the Star Wars, series, they talk about the light, they talk about the dark. We're constantly in this level of reality being shown the path. And again, the path is the right-hand path is again to serve others, to choose right action, or the left-hand path is to serve self and not care about other people. And if you serve self and not care about other people, how do you actually graduate to another higher level of reality that is benevolent? I don't think you do. I think if you're super evil and you eat kids and you harvest adrenochrome and you do all these things that we hear about elites doing, which by the way is not conspiracy theory. You can Google all of this stuff. I don't know if it'll ever come out, but it's all real. Then I think you can actually graduate to evil. I think you can move up a level and you can be under the yoke of whatever you want to call them, reptilians, mantids, demons. I mean, every religious theory or belief system is thinking about the same thing. Everyone's right. They just have different ways to quantify things. Christians think of good and evil as devil, demons, angels. Islam thinks about the jinn and the angels. Judaism thinks very similar things. If you get into the Eastern, you have the Bhagavad and you have like the Indian, I forget what the deities are called, but it's all the same. It's just different names. But everything is light and dark. So again, if you have left-hand path, that's dark, and you have right-hand path, that's light. The right-hand path, they call it that way because if you choose right action, you're on the right-hand path. The left-hand path is wrong action, right? So I think all of us have a choice in this current level reality. Every day we wake up to serve dark, which is left hand, or serve light, which is the right hand. And again, by serving the right hand path, you're allowing your soul to evolve and grow so that you can eventually break out of here, which again, if you're thinking Christian, that's ascension to the next level. And then there's another level after that. Again, sixth density. So it's like, we're just here in these trials as souls in these physical bodies to do enough right, hopefully. And again, not everybody chooses right. A lot of people choose bad. But if you choose right, you'll eventually graduate. And I just think that's literally like the path. And if you look at any ancient philosopher, any metaphysicist or teacher, and I've studied a lot of them, they all talk about this. They say the path is you come out of the womb and you're at the base of the jungle, and the path is back to the top of the mountain. And the top of the mountain is choosing right action as much as you possibly can, because you're going to be in service to self when you come out, right? You got to survive. You got to eat. You got to, your mom's got to burp you and do all these things. But eventually you can wake up consciously where you can actually choose to help people. And I just think that we're in a society today, again, this instant gratification society, where not enough people serve others. Like when you're at an airport, how many of us are helping people down the ramp when you're sitting there? You know what I'm saying? Like, we can choose to serve others who are less inclined or less able, but we have to make that as a choice. And that has to be our pole star, our guiding energy. And if we use that as our guiding energy every single day, it's my belief that we will eventually graduate. And again, Christians would say go to heaven. But heaven would be the next round or the next level of conscious reality or conscious awareness.
Yeah, it's not always easy to choose the right thing every single time, every single day, because there's like temptations towards other things. But you do it over and over again as a practice, and you get used to it, whether it's your diet or your other forms of your lifestyle. So it sounds like that's something that's, I guess each person needs to find and research and study stuff to kind of help them get through each and every day in a particular way. And that sounds like something that's helped you immensely.
Dude, 100%. And nobody, I don't judge anybody for their beliefs or their knowing or their awareness or whatever. Everybody's walking the same path back to source consciousness, to God. That's the path. Like, as a being, we're all going back to perfection, which is God. And you choose the rate and speed you go back to that path, right? And again, a lot of people who choose evil, who choose left-hand path action, I don't know if they make it back. Again, because most people that listen to this podcast understand Christianity. And I was raised Catholic, and I understand Christianity very well. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, it's, again, the same stuff. It's just different phraseologies, it's different terms. But if you choose the left-hand path, you choose evil. You align with Satan or the devil or whatever you want to say, right? And so it's like, if you choose that path while you're in a physical body, and look, man, like, if you really understand the laws of hyperdimensionality, you will understand that reincarnation is very real. That's not a belief. There's a reason that 70% of this planet believes in reincarnation. Like, there are people that have obviously, done past life regressions and regression hypnosis, and they've seen themselves in past lives. Like, I won't say it's verifiably provable, because anybody can prove anything. And by the way, there's no such thing as different levels of truth. There's truth and there's error. That is universal. People can believe and perceive whatever they want, but there's only truth and there's only error. That's like black and white. But at the end of the day, it's hard to verify in our current conscious awareness of reincarnation, but there's so many people that believe it's like Occam's razor. It's like the logical understanding. And from what I've done in my meditation and my out-of-body experiences, and yes, I have literally astral projected 4 times in my life, and I know how to do it. But I conscientiously practice doing it. I'm certain that reincarnation is real. I'm certain that this is not the only experience of our lives, that we go through these experiences to try our souls, to try our spirituality, to try our energy, to prepare us for more. Because again, what would be the purpose of being in a physical body if it wasn't to go better and I won't say bigger, but just to go on to a better place? You know what I mean? And again, we have a choice in our behaviors every single day, our actions that we take. And let me just end, we'll end the podcast with this. Like, the 2 most important things that a human being does in a physical body, and again, not everyone learns this, but is to give and to receive love. And at the end of this experience in life, when this physical body dies, we will not be judged on our physical things or our material possessions or any of that. We will be judged. And again, I don't mean judged like some supreme deity is judging us, but from a soul level, we will only remember the love we gave and the love we received. And so it's like, if you are on this conscious journey of building your consciousness and raising your vibration and doing all these things to go beyond this current level of reality, give and receive love as much as you possibly can. And I think that too many people are in the process of receiving and not giving. And sometimes it's vice versa. But if you choose every single day to give love to people, to say, hey, bro, I love you, man. I really appreciate you. And you do that with your wife and your kids and even just people you read on the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, you will create that energy or that light, in action, so to speak, that will allow you to graduate from this level of reality faster than someone who's not doing that. And there's been great musicians that sung these songs and said this stuff, but I mean, think about it. At the end of your life, what do you have other than the love that you gave, the memories, and the love you received, which are the memories? So the more you do of that, the better your life is going to be. It's as simple as that. I cannot, state it any better than that.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.